Meanwhile, Fang Qi received the task for getting Act 4, 100 activations of Act 3. Since this task could be done along with the task of binge-watching TV dramas, it would save Fang Qi a lot of work. In other words, Fang Qi top 2 priorities right now were leveling up his techniques so that he could get the task reward of being able to fly on swords and the completion of the new task. As to the new task, tonight's live stream was quite a boost. During the night, Counter-Strike had about 20 new players. After all, in this era without information technology, the customers would play whatever the shop owner played. Meanwhile, Shwedaelv had returned to the Liu Yundaist palace in a spiritual boat. Junior sister, do you think that we can make the spiritual artifacts which we used tonight? Shwedaelv wasn't an artifact master, but he was curious. Those things don't need spiritual energy or other conditions, they can be used by ordinary people and can release such powerful force. With his cultivation strength, he wasn't afraid of the guns. But as the leader of a big force, he saw the value in guns. Do these spiritual artifacts have bigger potential? If we combine them with our artifact-making techniques, could we produce more powerful spiritual artifacts? Besides, the sword control technique combined both the functions of offensive and flight. Its flight speed was greater than the spiritual boats that cultivators used, and being able to fly on swords would bring a lot of convenience to cultivators and warriors. I've decided. Shwedaelv said, tomorrow, I'll ask junior brother Tian Fengzi and Duan Bai who excel in artifact making to play Counter-Strike. Another thing. Tomorrow, I'll ask that young shop owner, Mr. Fang, to teach me how to do flick shots and quickscopes. Su Tianji's face turned dark while she said, Senior brother, I know these two techniques as well. After all, she was a divine ocean realm cultivator, and it hadn't taken her long to master these techniques. Your techniques are not nearly as good as Mr. Fang's, Shwedaelv said with disdain. Tomorrow, I'll still join Mr. Fang's team. Those 2 rounds were awesome. Did you see how An Huey and others were tortured by us? Shwedaelv laughed and said, that's what he gets for calling me a noob. Also, old man Nalan and the young girl and his family killed me several times. I'll pay them back tomorrow. Su Tianji. Nalan Mingxiu didn't leave the internet cafe until 12 am. Most of the disciples of Ling Yun Academy did the same. How fast the night passed. Lan Yan walked out of the internet cafe reluctantly, still savoring the enjoyable moments of playing with her peers from the Ling Yun Academy without any pressure from the school. On their way back to the academy, discussions about the games were everywhere. Hey! What did you play tonight? A young man who was wearing a pair of large-sized sunglasses asked, did you play The Legend of the Sword and Fairy? It was my first time with this game tonight, and the sword control technique is awesome. I played Counter-Strike. I tried flick shooting with the mouse like the shop owner did, but it was too difficult for me. I wonder how he did it. Still playing The Legend of the Sword and Fairy and Counter-Strike? I heard that Act 3 of Diablo will open tomorrow. Let's team up and get good items, okay? Ms. Nalan, Lan Yan had obviously also gotten the news about the arrival of Act 3 of Diablo. How about playing Diablo tomorrow? Watching the crowd leaving the internet cafe, Nalan Mingxiu seemed distracted by some thoughts. Ugh! She glanced at Lan Yan and said, no, we aren't coming here tomorrow. No. Lan Yan asked in surprise, why? Lan Yan's heart lurched while she wondered, is Ms. Nalan still angry at being killed by the shop owner in the game? Remembering the big dagger kill sign on everyone's screen, Lan Yan's heart hurt for Nalan Mingxiu for being killed by the shop owner with the dagger while the latter was playing using the keyboard and mouse. Another thing, Nalan Mingxiu continued, tell Song Qing Feng and others including the fat friend of Mr. Fang not to come here tomorrow. Lan Yan froze while she thought, is Lady Nalan going to destroy Mr. Fang's business to get revenge on him? What are you thinking about? Nalan Mingxiu glanced at her. Elder Qin, what's happening? In a secluded private compartment in the Wind and Moon Pavilion, Huo Chang asked with a dark expression. It was late, but they had no intention of leaving. Didn't we agree to suppress the Origin Internet Club together? Yesterday, the instructors who went to the Origin Internet Club to catch disciples were beaten away, but Lingyun Academy showed no response. Furthermore, many disciples went into the Internet Cafe today, but Qin Bing acted as if he had seen nothing. Calm down, Master Huo. Qin Bing looked calm. According to my intelligence, the Origin Internet Club isn't easy to handle. Do you suggest that we just ignore it? Huo Chang asked in a cold voice. Director Qin, you must know that this issue concerns not only the businesses in Zhuhua City but the status of Lingyun Academy as well. Ignore it. Qin Bing sneered. These disciples keep on ignoring my orders. As the director, I can't sit back and watch such behavior. Since these disciples are stubborn, I, Qin Bing, will prepare a good show for them. Qin Bing said with a sneer, I know how to deal with the business in Lingyun Academy. Master Huo, you don't have to worry about it. Then, I'll wait and see. Huo Chang said, this is an important issue, and I hope Director Qin will pay more attention to it. When they walked out of the Wind and Moon Pavilion, it was already midnight. The Iron Tower-looking instructor walked out with Qin Bing, and the nightly wind fluttered their clothes. Shall we put it into action? Do you think that it's okay to move so many instructors at this moment? Because this period of time is sensitive, I can't allow anything unusual to happen. Qin Bing walked forward against the chilly wind in the midnight. The sky was gloomy without the moonlight, and it seemed like a storm was coming. But if so many disciples are, the instructor said in a grave voice, will that affect our ranking in the national examination? While squinting his eyes, Qin Bin said with a cold smile, our trump cards are the few disciples whom I value the most. On the other hand, these disciples are of no importance to us. With his hands clasped behind his back, he said calmly, don't worry, just do it. For people like An Huey and the others, they wanted to study the weapons in Counter-Strike. However, for people like Song Qingfeng, the greatest benefit of the game was giving them a temporary boost to their concentration. Go! 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 Let's go back and cultivate hard, so we can reach the Master Warrior realm sooner. While they were on their way back to the academy, Song Qingfeng received a message from his communication jade. We'd better stay at the academy tomorrow. Song Qingfeng looked at the message from Lan Yan and was baffled. Lin Xiao and Su Luo had also got this message. We'd better stay in the academy. They looked at each other. What does it mean? She asked us to forward this message to Fatty Wang. Maybe she had seen my hard work and is afraid that I'll overtake her. Su Luo said, maybe that's why she sent this message to scare us. Don't joke around. Song Qingfeng gave him a dirty look and then said after a moment of consideration, her message reminds me that old Ghost Qin isn't someone who gives up easily. Is old Ghost Qin going to make a move? And she got the wind of it. Lin Xiao asked. If that's the case. Song Qingfeng frowned and said, send a message to Wang Tai. I remember that he has a lousy communication jade. Okay. Lin Xiao nodded. Tomorrow, we'll cultivate in the academy and see who is playing tricks, old Ghost Qin or these two girls. Meanwhile, Fang Qi stayed alone in the internet cafe playing Diablo, gaining levels and obtaining items until early morning. In Diablo, one could level up skills fast if they kept gaining levels and acquiring items which could add levels to the skills. Fang Qi still had some time left in the game cultivation room, and he planned to choose some of the current skills and techniques which could be used with the sword control technique and master them. He would be able to have another trump card without having to have total synchronizations with his game characters. Before the task that would reward him with Li Xiaoao's Wuchen sword came out, he wouldn't be able to complete his synchronization with Li Xiaoao. Right now, he can satisfy the other condition of complete synchronization with Li Xiaoao, and that was reaching 20% of total synchronization. He didn't need to waste his time on practicing the heavenly sword. In the game, it was a progressive technique to the innumerable sword scroll, but they were both powerful AoE techniques in the real world. Comparatively, the innumerable sword scroll had less power but was nimbler, while the heavenly sword had more power but was harder to master. Fang Qi couldn't have them all. Right now, his priority was to master the innumerable sword scroll. He was considering which other skills and techniques could work with the innumerable sword scroll. He went to Akara in Act I and reset his skill points before leveling up the offensive aura, Holy Shock. With this aura, one could use the essence in the body to add lightning damage to each attack, and the consumption of essence was so little that it could be ignored. In theory, the higher the attack frequency, the more damage it would do. Fang Qi thought about the many energy swords that the innumerable sword scroll creates. While touching his chin, he mused to himself, it might work. More importantly, this offensive aura was effective no matter if the user was attacking close up or from a distance. As to the other auras and skills, some were ineffective in close-range combat and some were not suitable for pairing up with the sword control technique. In fact, there were powerful skills in Diablo 2, but for the cultivators and warriors in this world, the first technique that they considered was the sword control technique. After redistributing the skill points, Fang Qi got himself busy in leveling up. At this rate, he should be able to finish the task about mastering 10 skills and gain the ability to fly on swords in 2 days. Some time passed, and the first volume of the official novel of Diablo finally came out. On a street not far from Dongguan Book Forest, the setting sun shined on the neat and clean ground and the few pedestrians who were walking on it. Zixin, thank you for doing this for me. On one side of the street was a simple but elegant small bookstore. Standing in front of the store, Shen Qingqing looked tired while she fixed her wind-blown hair behind her ears. They had hurried here to tidy up the books right after school. Don't mention it. Su Zixin waved her hand casually. I came here to see the book. If it's lousy, I'll bring you to account. I'm sure you'll like it. In this world, the scholars were typically poor while the warriors and cultivators were rich. It was good if one mastered both roles, but as a mere scholar. Even for the government officials, if they didn't have warriors or cultivators among their descendants, their wealth wouldn't be able to be passed on for many generations. In fact, if the civil officials lost their offices due to convictions of criminal behavior, their descendants would never be allowed to enter the official system, no matter what the causes were. The owner of this bookstore was a serene and elegant woman who was the descendant of a dismissed civil official. After her family declined, she had to open a shop to earn her living. Sitting straight on a square wooden chair, she had turned to the last page of an exquisite book scroll, looking as if she craved for more. That's the end. Highway, what do you think? Shen Qingqing asked, do you like this novel? The word like can't describe my feeling. Use Highway exclaimed, who is this person that created such a miraculous and imaginative world? I'd say that this book opens a brand new door. With a bitter smile, she asked curiously, such a novel should be put in a big bookstore like Dongguan Book Forest and be treated with great attention. With their help, you can sell this book more quickly. Qingqing, why do you want to put the books in my shop? Shen Qingqing told this woman about what happened. The shop owner of Dongguan Book Forest wants to promote Celestial Warrior, and so. Before she could finish, she saw a blink in her communication jade, someone sent her a message. She took out her communication jade, and her expression suddenly turned weird. What happened? Qingqing. The other two looked at her curiously. The instructors are checking on the dorms in the academy. Come back ASAP. Checking on the dorms. Shen Qingqing and Su Zixin looked at each other in confusion. Meanwhile in Lingyun Academy, do you think it's a good plan? Behind Qin Bing, the tall instructor asked in a deep voice. Qin Bing narrowed his eyes. According to my investigation, the disciples like to go out to the Origin Internet Club in the evening, since they can sneak out easier. About this time yesterday, many people were absent from the school. The disciples of Lingyun Academy were diligent cultivators, and they usually didn't go out of the school except those who were going out for missions and trips. When a large group of people went missing, it would be very conspicuous. At this moment, we can catch them all. Qin Bing glanced at the time. It's past 7, and it's time to do the check. Anyone who's absent from school must have a good explanation. As to those who can't give a good explanation, you know what to do, right? With a snort, Qin Bing continued, even if that shop has a master behind it, I don't believe that he dares to intervene with the internal affairs of our Lingyun Academy. Elder Qin, your plan is excellent. I'm sure we can give a tough lesson to these reckless disciples this time. In the internet cafe, Xi Qi touched his communication jade and saw the message, Brother, the academy is doing a dorm check. Come back ASAP. Besides Xi Qi, many other players in the internet cafe received the message as well, the instructors are doing dorm check. Come back quick. My God! Are they trying to find out who is here playing games? Why do they do this right now? Hurry! Go back to the academy. Many players in the internet cafe panicked. Whew! That was close. Lan Yan patted her chest to calm her racing heart while she watched the instructors leave. It's fortunate that we stayed in the school today. What shall we do? If the academy does the check once a day, we will not be able to go out and play games anymore. Lan Yan said worriedly, this is happening inside of Lingyun Academy, and Mr. Fang can't intervene. The academy can't do this every day. Nalan Mingxiu said, one time is too much work already. Besides, it can only work when they catch us off guard. If they did it again, the disciples could prepare excuses and fake witnesses ahead of time. Nalan Mingxiu said mildly, I guess Qin Bing just wants to give a grave warning to all the disciples by doing this large-scale dorm check so that we wouldn't dare to do it again in the future. I'm not worried about the next time. I'm afraid that the disciples who are caught this time will be in big trouble. Meanwhile, Song Qing Feng sat in a quiet room cross-legged and the warrior qi emitting from his body puffed up his clothes. His face turned pale and then red as if the warrior qi in his body gathered together and was blocked at some obstacle. Obviously, he had come to the critical moment of a breakthrough. Calm down. Concentrate. The cultivation techniques of our Song family are a bit too harsh. He furrowed his eyebrows. No, did I progress too fast? No. No. His face turned redder as if all the warrior qi was blocked in one place. No. If this continues without success, my meridians will be severely damaged. If I back out at this moment without success, my cultivation strength will be greatly reduced. I can't fail at this critical moment. To ensure the success of this breakthrough, I even took the Dragon Tiger Vital Nurturing Pill. I can't fail. I remember a technique on concentration from the legend of the Sword and Fairy. However, our Song family's cultivation techniques can't work with outside techniques. But Ms. Nalan. Lan Yan hurried and followed Nalan Mingxiu out of the door. Behind the private courtyard was a vast training field. Candles were lit on the walls, and there was a row of neatly placed weapons on both sides of the field. How is your sword control technique? I can use it, Lan Yan said with some hesitation, but I've never used it in a real battle. Nalan Mingxiu picked up a long sword and tossed it at Lan Yan. Try it. On the second day, the punishment decision of Lingyun Academy finally came out. Sitting in Class A of the Huang House, Xi Qi looked gloomy. Besides him, many other disciples in Lingyun Academy were gloomy as well. Expelled from the Lingyun list. Mu Hongzhi frowned and looked at these disciples whose heads were lowered. She felt extremely sad. At least half of these disciples were going to be expelled from the Lingyun list. The Lingyun list released by Lingyun Academy was the standard used to measure the disciples' strengths and talents for all the other big and small academies in the entire Jiangnan area. It also determined the resources that a disciple could receive from their academies and families. After all, no force wanted to waste resources on a wastrel who couldn't even enter the Ling Yun list. This wasn't a big deal for those ordinary disciples who weren't on the Ling Yun list, but most of these disciples who were going to be punished had good talent and strengths. Being expelled from the Ling Yun list meant that most of these young people would see their much-needed cultivation resources greatly reduced. It meant that their hard efforts on cultivation were all wasted. It felt like one who got a good grade after studying hard heard the declaration from the school that their marks were invalid. Although they were not expelled from the academy, this punishment was more effective. Sure enough, only the people from outside of the city like Ye Xiao and high-level aristocrats such as An Hui came to Fang Qi shop on the second day. Today, even the independent warriors such as Liang Shi didn't dare to show up. That's how it should be. In his garden, Pang Ruli drank wine with enjoyment. Now that most of the businesses declared that they won't welcome customers who have dealings with the Origin Internet Club, all the residents are avoiding this shop as if it is a snake. Hey! I'll see how your business can continue. Dad! Look at these people. They are going too far. In the front hall of the Castellan estate, An Cheng looked very displeased. An Hui was frustrated. After all, the businesses in the city had the right to decide whom they wanted to serve. Those people were still respectful to him, but they were like bullies toward the weaker people. This situation was worse enough for a small shop. This Ho Chong is a troublemaker. Sitting in the Castellan estate, An Hui was angry but didn't know how to vent it. He is turning the city upside down. However, despite his displeasure, he couldn't deal with these complicated forces head-on. Dad, do you think the senior in Mr. Fang's shop will show his hand? Yawn, Zhang Xiaoyu sat behind the counter and yawned. Only a few people came into the shop in the morning, and Zhang Xiaoyu was not used to this quiet atmosphere. At this moment, Fang Qi walked downstairs with fatigue on his face. Obviously, he had just come out of the game cultivation room. Boss, you got up so late. Zhang Xiaoyu pouted with resentment. Look. We have a very slow day. I guess they realized that the stuff in your shop is too expensive and have decided not to come anymore. Zhang Xiaoyu glanced at the shop and said with her hands resting on her hips. Is that so? Fang Qi glanced around the shop and realized that the business today was indeed slow. He waved at Zhang Xiaoyu, saying, You watch the shop while I'm out. Go out. Zhang Xiaoyu stared at him curiously and then said with a pout, At this moment, you still want to go out? Yet. Fang Qi walked out of the door. Today was the day that the official novel of Diablo came out, and he wanted to check up on them. The despicable owner is so carefree. Zhang Xiaoyu returned to her seat in a huff. Ugh! At this moment, Yun Lian looked at the almost empty shop with elation. Faction Master had been planning for a group training for the elite disciples in the Origin Internet Cafe. In the past, the Internet Cafe didn't have enough seats, and it didn't accept bookings. But now, excited, he immediately took out the communication jade and said, I'll send this good news to the faction right now. Each gun was an exquisite instrument, and the structure as well as the materials were meticulously selected. However, these materials were obviously not fit for the engravement of array formations. Converting guns into spiritual artifacts that were used by cultivators was obviously not so simple. After trying so many artifact materials, you just can't find anything suitable. Li Haoran considered for a moment. Last time, Mr. Fang mentioned that he would teach us high school level physics and chemistry, right? Put aside the things that you're doing and learn more basic knowledge. Your academy launched a large-scale dorm check. Fang Qi face twitched. He was sitting with Su Zixin and Shen Qingqing in a restaurant not far from the Dongguan Book Forest. Although not as luxurious as the Wind and Moon Pavilion, this restaurant wasn't a small shop. On a small platform to one side on the second floor, a grey-haired old man in a blue robe waved a folding fan and said, Do you know who the three saints in Celestial Warrior are? It was clear that this senior was a storyteller here. 3 saints. Many people on the second floor froze for a moment. Is he going to tell the story of the three saints battling on the immortal exterminating ridge? It's said that this part of the story is enthralling. I wonder if such figures exist in the real world. Fang Qi filled his wine cup while he listened to the story with disinterest. After all, he was a guy who came from the information era. Ugh, is this the most popular novel here? Obviously, the audience members were listening to the story to kill time while they enjoyed their meals and wine, and they didn't look too enthusiastic about it. Shen Qingqing looked embarrassed. She had liked the novel before. But after playing the games in Fang Qi's shop, she now found that Celestial Warrior was not nearly as enthralling as the grand and novel world of Diablo and the romance and conflicts in the legend of the Sword and Fairy. Long before Fang Qi traveled through time and space, terms such as three saints had been discarded since they were cliché. We probably can't go to the shop to play games in a short time. Su Zixin looked reluctant. Lately, the Academy is watching us closely. They even resorted to the ultimate method of dorm checking. Fang Qi nodded. You indeed need to be more careful. Sir, you don't look angry at all. Why? Shen Qingqing asked curiously. Ugh. That's not something unusual. Fang Qi looked cool and turned back to his meal. TL note, in China, it was common for students to get caught while playing at internet cafes when they are in boarding schools. Sir, try this. The Yuan Yang 9 pattern fish at this place is superb. Shen Qingqing was not only a gamer but foodie as well. By the way, are there more delicacies coming to your shop? Delicacies? Fang Qi thought for a moment while he grabbed a piece of fish into his plate. I guess so. Really? Shen Qingqing looked pleasantly surprised, but she felt deflated quickly. I hope that one day I can go into your internet cafe to eat delicious snacks and play games without worrying about being caught. Me too. Remembering their good old days, Su Zixin also felt lost and nostalgic. That day will come, Fang Qi said. After they left, a busboy came over to clear the table and found a book. It must have been left behind by those customers. After clearing the table, he glanced at the old man who was telling the story that he had heard many times and casually picked up the book with the strange name of Diablo. A wanderer. Yes, a dark wanderer. It seems ages have passed since I was in the rogue citadel. The busboy read the reminiscent beginning and wondered, well. It's a novel? With nothing else to do, he read on with some curiosity. After reading only a few paragraphs, he found that this novel was totally different from Celestial Warrior, which he had heard many times. Monsters? What are these powerful creatures? Angels? What kind of world is this one? The citadel is destroyed? Then, the humans won't have a place to live. What can they do? The busboy read on with interest. In the internet cafe, Shwedail rolled up his sleeves and said, "Come on. Let's play a few rounds of Counter-Strike." There were two men behind him. One of them was wearing a white daoist robe, and the other was wearing a deep blue daoist robe. Junior brothers, I'll show you what Rush B is today. Su Tianji's face twitched while she thought, yesterday, you wore a mask to come here. Today, you turned into an experienced player? Senior, how come the young girl in your family is not here today? Shwedailv had planned to compete with the grandfather and granddaughter of the Nalan family but realized that Nalan Mingxia wasn't here. Lingyun Academy. Hearing the explanation from the people around him, Shwedailv thought for a moment. Despite his high status, it wasn't right for him to mind other people's private business. Forget it. Today, we'll play among ourselves. Humph. I say, that old Qin Bing is just jealous. Ouyang Zhen snorted, he can't bear to see others become successful, can he? Everyone knew that the games in this shop benefited cultivation. However, if it continued to grow, the Lingyun Martial Arts Tower at Lingyun Academy obviously would lose its lofty status. Will those little ones come in the future? An Huey wondered. Without these young ones shouting and cheering before the big screen or behind their chairs, they felt like something was missing. Senior, don't you want to help your granddaughter? It's her own business, and she will handle it well. Nalan Hongyu narrowed his eyes slightly. Ms. Nalan, do you think that we will get to go to the internet cafe without worrying about being caught like before? Soaking in sweat, Lan Yan bent down and panted with fatigue as a black sword lay beside her on the ground. If it were in the past, she wouldn't be able to practice sword techniques with Nalan Mingxu for such a long time. She sensed her great improvement. Standing opposite to her, Nalan Mingxiu's smooth and white forehead was also covered in sweat, and a silver sword hovered in the air a meter above her right shoulder. The sword control technique. Although she was still far from mastering this technique like Fang Qi did, she could now use it in battle with proficiency. Of course we will. She nodded with conviction while bright lights flashed in her beautiful eyes. I heard that the national examination is drawing near. I think it's time for me to put some of my plans into action. When Song Qingfeng came out of the cultivation room, his presence was totally different. Not only did his cultivation strength grow, but his eyes looked sharper and more intense. What's this book that enthralled this kid so much? Li Fuxian had spent all his life on managing this restaurant and had almost seen all walks of life. While he thought back to how taken that busboy was, he picked up the exquisite book from the table and wondered, was this book left behind by a customer? He opened it casually and murmured, "It's a novel? How can such a book be interesting?" He was about to toss it aside when he remembered the enthralled expression of the busboy, and he murmured, "Is it really so good?" Since he had nothing else to do right now after the rush hour passed, Li Fuxian turned to the first page. 10 minutes later, Li Fuxian widened his eyes, wondering, is there such a wondrous place in this world? A lord from hell named Diablo is going to destroy the world? A paladin from a saint temple? Who is he? Shen Qingqing's writing was so good that she described each figure with vividness, such as the ambitious adventurers from all over the world, the wise and amiable Akara, and the generous and bold blacksmith Charsai. After reading The Journey into the Den of Evil and realizing the demonization of the previous hero, Li Fuxian got engrossed in this magical story in which the humans in the world of darkness and despair tried to find the light. The dark night gave me black eyes, I use them to look for light. He read these words from the book. Superb! Superb! Li Fuxian slapped his thigh and cried out loudly, oblivious to everything around him. This story is amazing. Shen Qingqing looked at Fang Qi curiously while she asked, "Sir, how did you come up with these words?" She was curious about this Mr. Fang, who looked younger than her, but had great strength and seemed to know everything. He could even come up with such meaningful sentences. She thought. Fang Qi shrugged and didn't respond. Those words had been a cliché in his old world, and he wouldn't have used them if they were not fitting to the storyline of Diablo. Do you really think that people will read the book this way? Of course. Curiosity killed the cat, Fang Qi said with conviction. Curiosity killed the cat. The two girls looked even more curious as they gazed at Fang Qi. But there's no cat in that shop. Mr. Yu. In Fuxian restaurant, Li Fuxian called over the storyteller who had just walked off the platform with fatigue. Come and take a look of this novel. Li Fuxian handed him the book and asked in a slightly panting voice, "Can you tell this story tomorrow?" Although his restaurant was big, the storytelling was still an integral part of his business. After all, people would choose a restaurant which provided both entertainment and good food. If the entertainment could pique their interest, it would be a bonus. The storyteller with the surname of Yu read through the novel while his expression turned grim. When he finished the first part, he asked, "Mr. Li, where did you get this book?" "It was left behind by some customers," Li Fuxian said. "If they came back for it, we'll certainly return it to them. But I don't think it's a big deal that we read it, right?" "Right." Mr. Yu stroked his beard. "If I tell this story, I ensure you that the customers coming into your restaurant will increase by at least 30%. So many. Li Fuxian was surprised. It's because our restaurant is the only place that can tell such a wondrous story. Mr. Yu said, the world that this book describes is very novel but also very logical, which is very rare. The only thing is that the writer seems to be a bit inexperienced, but if it's told by me, then, I'll count on you, Mr. Yu. Li Fuxian was thrilled by his words. But if you know about the origin of this book, you must keep it a secret, Mr. Yu said. Of course. Realizing that this novel could bring him great benefits, Li Fuxian would certainly make the best out of it. Even if they get hooked by this book and ask the storyteller to tell the story to the diners as you just explained, once they realize that the book can bring them more profit than Celestial Warrior, they will hide the origin of this book from others, right? Su Zixin was even more puzzled about this far-fetched promotional idea. Fang Qi couldn't help laughing. Isn't it a better outcome for us? Really? Shen Qingqing asked, better outcome? What do you mean? They will make everyone in their restaurant curious, Fang Qi explained. If you can only hear a very interesting novel in one place but don't know where to buy it or if it has a sequel, won't you feel unsatisfied? Won't you ask about it from people around you? Well, I think you're right. This way, they will spread the curiosity to the people around them as well. Fang Qi said. So the people who are asked about. The two girls understood it suddenly. Oh. Shen Qingqing was a bit upset. Then, many people will buy the novel. I wish that I had printed more of them. We have enough. Fang Qi said. Enough. The two girls were confused by Fang Qi logic. If many people want to buy the book, we can't satisfy them all. I'll tell you a story. There's a vendor who sold rotten apples, and he could sell tens of thousands and even hundreds of thousands of them. However, he purposefully provided less. Sir. Shen Qingqing and Su Zixin were amused by his story and asked, how can one sell tens of thousands of rotten apples? That's nonsense. Then, I'll say rotten spiritual fruits. Just ignore the details, Fang Qi said with a straight face. Then, what happened? The two girls looked unconvinced. Before the sale of the rotten spiritual fruits, people stood in a long line in front of his shop, and some even began waiting there during the night. The people who bought the rotten spiritual fruits cried with joyful tears while those who came too late tried to buy them from those lucky ones at a cost several times of its original price. While he spoke, Fang Qi glanced at their tiny waists. Some even traded their kidneys for the rotten spiritual fruits. That's nonsense. The two girls rolled their eyes and said, forget it. Today, we can't go to your shop since we must stay low for a while. There was still some time before the class, but almost all the disciples looked heavy-hearted. Hey! Xi Qi! What's wrong with you? Are you sulky because I made the breakthrough one step before you? Song Qingfeng patted Xi Qi's shoulder and said. With their talents and cultivation strengths on the same level, they had been competing to see who was better. But now... Congratulations, Xi Qi answered him listlessly. Hey! What's wrong with you? Song Qingfeng froze. Yesterday, the academy checked the dorms, someone explained in a low voice. Their targets were disciples who went to the Origin Internet Club. Now, many people are. Indeed, Class A of the Huang House was immersed in sadness for the last 2 days because almost half of the disciples in the class were caught in the dorm check while they went to the internet cafe. Many of them could gain a good rank in the Huang list, which was one of the components of the Ling Yun list. But with this incident, almost half of the disciples in the class were not qualified to enter the list anymore. How did this happen? Song Qingfeng and his two buddies looked at each other and frowned. Yesterday, thanks to Nalan Mingxiu's warning, they didn't go to the internet cafe. Instead, he had stayed in the academy, cultivating all day. However, the moment that they came out, they were greeted with this bad news. Our Class A has become the laughingstock of the whole academy, one disciple said angrily. All of us had the opportunity to enter the Ling Yun list, but now half of us lost the qualifications. I'm afraid that Instructor Mu and Instructor Chen will get into a rage. That's a small concern compared with the restriction of resources. Without cultivation resources, how can we cultivate in the future? Song Qingfeng tightened his fists. It must be another trick played by old Ghost Qin, right? You're fine this time. One disciple patted Song Qingfeng's shoulder and said, but we are in trouble. I didn't know that old Ghost Qin would be so vicious. Xi Chi said with red eyes. I don't know what we will do in the future. Don't be so desperate. Song Qingfeng clenched his fists. I have a bold idea. While all the disciples got busy cultivating, Ling Yun Academy issued another order, prohibiting all the disciples from going out of the school before the national examination. This rule would prevent them from going to the internet cafe to play games completely. Looking at the tightly closed academy gate, the instructor behind Qin Bing said worriedly, Director Qin, do you think that it's a good idea to restrict the disciples' freedom this way? I'm doing it for their own good. Qin Bing said with a snort, to ensure that they can cultivate without distraction, I created this seclusion teaching method for them. By the way, how is Zhang doing? Don't worry, Elder Qin. Gongzi Qin Zhang will soon reach the late stage of the Grandmaster Warrior realm. With his newly mastered combat technique, he will surely get the first place on the Earth list. As to the other disciples, they are in excellent states, and their talents are great. Besides, the number one of the Heaven House, Wang Zishui, has returned. TL note, Gongzi means child in Chinese. Good. Qin Bing nodded and said, put more effort on their training. With the number one position on 3 lists, we'll have the chance to become the best academy in the national examination. Ms. Nalan, what's your plan? Don't make me wait. Lan Yan was extremely curious. After a shower and changing into fresh clothes, they strode to the practice field. It's simple. Nalan Mingxiu said, the academy prohibits the disciples from going out, but it doesn't apply to the instructors, right? Instructors. Lan Yan froze. Ms. Nalan, do you mean? Lan Yan had been with Nalan Mingxiu for a long time and knew her personality, but she was still shocked by her bold idea. Ms. Nalan is even turning her eyes toward the instructors this time. That's true, but... Lan Yan said, I don't think the instructors will take your orders. Nalan Mingxiu replied, you're right. The instructors won't take my orders, but do you think that the instructors aren't curious? About what? For example, Castellanan and faction chief Ye spend all day in the internet cafe. Nalan Mingxiu said, if we could inform the instructors without alerting Old Man Qin, what do you think they would do? What do you think they would do after learning the benefits? Ugh! Lan Yan froze. Just like us, the instructors also want to become more powerful, and that is the top priority for them. However, Qin Bing is different since his priority is to ensure the status of the Ling Yun Academy and the Ling Yun Martial Arts Tower, thus ensuring his own status. In fact, the instructors are on our side, Nalan Mingxiu said with good logic. They haven't gone to the internet cafe because they still need a push. Lan Yan accepted Nalan Mingxiu's analysis, but she still felt like it wasn't so easy. But I'm sure Old Man Qin wouldn't just sit back and watch if that happens. He will be off to supervise the national examination. Nalan Mingxiu's lips curved up. Before we come back from the national examination, many things can happen. Lan Yan was stupefied. Soon, it was night, and several figures walked in the darkness. Young Master Song, do we have to take such a great risk? Think of the disciples who are suppressed by old Ghost Qin. We must prove to the 3 major academies and the entire Dajin during the national examination. We must work hard. We'll show our strengths to these nearsighted people. Do you think that big array around the Ling Yun Academy is on? Don't worry. Old Manchin would never imagine that we could do this. The wall is very high. Can we get over it? Hush! Don't let anyone hear us. Hurry! Use the sword control technique to send the swords up. Although they couldn't fly on the swords yet, their skill levels were enough for them to use their swords as stepping stones. Behind the wall that was several meters tall, 3 swords hovered in the air like steps. Song Qingfeng looked at the shaky swords uneasily. Young Master Lin, young Master Su, can you do it? The swords look unsteady. If something happens, none of us can escape. Don't worry. We will be fine. Then, I'll go first. Song Qingfeng gritted his teeth and retreated several steps to prepare for a charge. We carry the hope of the whole class, so we can't mess it up. Move! Move! Let's grab those computers! They yelled, Xiaoyu. Will take 4 hours. Today, Act 3 of Diablo came out, right? Su Luo asked. Hurry! Lin Xiao said impatiently, activate it and play. And Huey had just gotten off the computer, and he froze at the sight of them. You guys still came? Hush! Lin Xiao whispered, we jumped the wall to get out. And Huey's face twitched, and he almost dropped under the table. Stroking his chin, he looked them up and down, thinking, with the academy's gate closed, you just jumped the wall to get out? How did old Ghost Qin train these guys? They can find loopholes in every rule. I wish that the disciples in my Liu Yundaist palace could be as diligent as them. Shwedailv murmured to himself. If you bring your disciples here, they will be as diligent as these kids. And Huey said with a laugh. Good idea. Shwedailv's eyes lit up. Tomorrow, I'll bring my disciples to get familiar with these new weapons. Then, I'll show them the great power of the sword control technique. The next morning, in the summer wind full of the faint fragrance of lotus flowers, a chilling atmosphere permeated the space. The wind blew in through the windows, and the sunlight shone into the room. However, the sunlight felt as cold as the morning wind. Yesong Tao's gaze was even colder. With about 100 disciples behind him, he stared ahead without blinking. Like a breeze, the newcomer seemed lighter than the sunlight, but his position in Dajin carried great weight. He had also brought about 100 disciples. Yesong Tao exclaimed in surprise, why did you bring so many people here, Palace Master Shuet? You can bring so many disciples here, so why can't I do the same? With many disciples with him, Shwedailv had obviously come prepared. Yesong Tao sighed faintly. It's a pity that the shop doesn't have enough seats for all of us. With a cold sneer, Shwedailv looked at the 100 disciples behind his opponent and said, then, only one of us can bring our disciples into the shop. Yesong Tao waved his right hand, signaling his disciples to retreat. The person with the greater strength can enter the shop. Fine. Shwedailv said with heroic spirit. The wind on the street got even colder. The intense lights in their eyes got brighter while they said at the same time, counter-strike. The best of 3 wins. Yesong Tao immediately pushed the door open and entered the shop. Xiaoyu, get me a computer. I'll have a duel with Palace Master Shui today. Okay. Is Faction Master Song and Palace Master Shui going to duel in counter-strike? Follow them. Follow them. The moment that they entered the game, many disciples came and stood behind them to watch. While touching the exquisite bodies of the heavy sniper rifles, they both began buying grenades and bulletproof vests without hesitation. The Palace Master is walking out of the door. Liu Yundaist Palace's Xiao Yulv, a veteran bystander, cried out as his face twitched, this step is, the Wuchen step. Wuchen step. Alerted by Xiao Yulv's cry, the disciples of Cloud Ocean faction immediately looked at Shwedailv's screen. Ye Xiao froze and then whispered, isn't it? Yunlian immediately covered his junior sister's mouth and then looked at their faction master's screen, exclaiming, "Our faction master walked out of the door as well." Flick shot. The faction master just flick shot without being taught. Although the shot missed, it looked proficient. Ugh! What are all these people doing here? Fang Qi saw a large crowd in the shop, and Zhang Xiaoyu was jumping around, wanting to see what was happening since she was too short. Faction Chief Ye and Palace Master Shui have both brought disciples to play games in the shop, lowly Zhang Xiaoyu explained. They are now competing in Counter-Strike, and the winner's disciples can play the games first. At this moment, people shouted in the crowd, "Our faction master is quickscoping." Quickscoping. It's no big deal. Our palace master dodged all the bullets with the Wuchen step. These two guys are both noobs. How come they are so strong? With his face twitching, Fang Qi looked toward them but couldn't see anything. My god! Our faction master is using the quickscope technique so frequently. Even the shop owner can't do it. Can the shop owner dodge bullets? Xiao Yulv yelled in contempt, "Our palace master has dodged all the snipes from faction master yet. Our palace master has also dodged the many snipes from faction master yet. My god! Blind snipe!" The palace master used blind snipe with the machine gun. At this moment, An Huawei and the others also came to the shop. Looking at the bustling crowd, they were confused. What's happening in the shop so early in the morning? Right now, few people in Zhuhua City come here to play games, but the shop has such a big crowd today? Getting close. At this moment, An Huawei and the others heard another exclamation. Faction Master Ye dug out the Desert Eagle and shot Palace Master Shui, who is using Wuchen step. The first match is over. So exciting! An Huawei looked at the crowd suspiciously and patted the shoulders of the two disciples standing before him. Let me in! Let me in! Sir! I want to watch! Zhang Xiaoyu looked at the crowd eagerly. Let us in! Let us in! Fang Qi had no choice but to squeeze to the front of the crowd while holding this lowly's hand. The palace master walked out of the door with Wuchen steps again. The faction master is warming up with flick shots. The bullets dodged all the obstacles with perfection. Fang Qi had just squeezed to the front, and his face twitched when he heard this exclamation. What are they yelling about? Looking forward, he saw one person shooting without aiming and the other jumping like crazy. No blood was shed in the whole process. Let me see. Let me see. Zhang Xiaoyu finally got to the front of the crowd and watched the two of them shoot at each other wildly. She froze upon seeing this. Can't you summarize it with a few words? With his face twitching, Fang Qi whispered to Yunlian who stood beside him. What do you mean? Yunlian asked. Just noobs fighting, Fang Qi whispered with a dark expression. Yunlian glanced at the two masters who were busy playing Counter-Strike, and his face turned red with stifled laughter. Sir, I can't. I'm out of here. Go on with your fun. Fang Qi backed out of the crowd. He didn't know which side won the match. All he saw was that the two groups entered the two shops respectively and engaged in a large group fight in Counter-Strike. Fang Qi glanced at the task list and saw the activation target for Counter-Strike being met instantly. He only needed to achieve the activation target of Diablo 2 before the launch of the TV drama Zhu Xian. TL note, Zhu Xian, also known as Jade Dynasty, is an older Xiangxia web novel that was immensely popular. Here's Mr. Yu. What will Mr. Yu tell today? How about the Three Saints again? Forget it. I've listened to it many times. One customer complained. He just told it yesterday, and it will be boring to hear it again today. How about the part where the main character dropped down the cliff? A cultivator said with a wine cup in his hand, the only part interesting about that story is when he survived the fall and gained a great treasure. I'm tired of that too. A luxuriously dressed warrior shook his head and said, how about the part where he met a powerful master? The hero met an old grandmaster when he was in a desperate situation. At this moment, Mr. Yu slammed the gavel on the table and began, "Everyone, do you know what lies at the end of the Tianzhu Ocean to the distant west?" "Ugh! I don't remember this part in Celestial Warrior. What is there? Isn't it the legendary Endless Death Zone where the monsters live? Today, I'll tell you the story of Diablo." Mr. Yu raised his head and said, "Diablo? What's this Diablo?" All the people in the audience looked at each other and then gazed at the old storyteller in confusion. In the distant west, gods lived in the heavens with boundless light, and they were called angels. Their enemies were called demons. While the angels and demons fought, humans were caught in between and struggled to survive. "What's this place?" Everyone looked at each other with curiosity. There are such entities like angels and demons. How about humans? Were there any emperor warriors or immortals who could build a force to fight the demons? Good question. The customers had gotten tired of hearing stories about combat techniques and celestial spells. When they heard the novel elements, such as the paladin and demons, they felt, "Is this also a novel? Is it a new book?" They felt as if a new world was opened to them. It seemed like there was really an unknown place on the other side of the ocean. And in that world, there were characters such as paladins and sorceresses, and there was a new power structure that they had never known before, such as magic. In that world, the angels and demons battled each other fiercely. A cultivator exclaimed, "They also have people like cultivators? Can the sorceresses make spiritual artifacts? They even have lofty warriors such as paladins." An aristocratic warrior inhaled deeply and said, "The paladins can practice spiritual spells. They have crazy warriors who are barbarians." A cultivator asked with great curiosity, "The druids cultivated the transformational techniques to this level. Who is his master? Is his master the legendary thousand-face godly master?" Mr. Yu only went through half of today's material, yet all kinds of questions were tossed at him. Mr. Yu slammed the gavel on the desk and cupped his hands to the audience, saying, "If you want to get the answers, come and hear the rest of the story in the future." He glanced at Li Fuxian and saw the latter giving him a thumbs up secretly. Mr. Yu said smugly, "Please come back tomorrow." "That's all for today. How about this evening?" Mr. Yu said calmly, "I'll continue telling Celestial Warrior at dinner time." The audience protested, "We don't want to hear it. That story is boring. At least tell us what happens to this world in the end. Did Diablo destroy the world or not? We want to hear the story of the West. We want to hear Diablo." "Quiet down." Hearing their eager requests, Mr. Yu felt overwhelmed. "Tonight, I'll reveal to you some of the contents in tomorrow's session. Please wait until then." When evening came, the owner of the nearby Jingxiang restaurant was puzzled. How come the business today is so slow? Meanwhile, the Fuxian restaurant across the street was more crowded than usual. What's happening? I heard that Fuxian restaurant told a new story today. A busboy whispered to him. The customers all went there to hear the story. Is the 9th volume of Celestial Warrior out already? That owner you from Dongguan Book Forest didn't tell me the news. The fat owner was furious. From what I heard, they are not telling Celestial Warrior, a busboy explained. The 9th volume of Celestial Warrior won't come out until tomorrow, right? Then, what story are they telling? It seems to be a story named Diablo, the busboy whispered. Dial. What? What name is that? The fat restaurant owner was confused. Go. Ask someone where they got this so-called Diablo. From what I know, all the stories told in the restaurants have the books out first, right? On the street, two warriors seemed to be searching for something. How come none of the big bookstores have this book? The Fuxian restaurant tells only a small part of the story each day, I just can't wait. A warrior said with frustration. I never like to listen to the stories they tell, the other warrior said, but today, I found this story novel and enthralling. That is Dongguan Book Forest, the biggest bookstore in this city. One warrior said, "Let's go and see if they have the book." Yu Rui, the owner of Dongguan Book Forest, was smug when he thought about the big profits that he would make when the 9th volume of Celestial Warrior publishes. Dongguan Book Forest was the sole printer and distributor of Celestial Warrior in the entire Zhuhua city. Whenever a new volume came out, the other bookstores, restaurants, and even some aristocrats in the entire Zhuhua city asked favors from him. It gave him great pleasure. At this moment, two warriors came into the bookstore. Standing behind the counter, Yu Rui asked them, "Are you here for the 9th volume of Celestial Warrior as well?" "I'm sorry, but you must come back tomorrow for it." "We don't care about Celestial Warrior," one of the warriors said. "Sir, do you have Diablo or not?" "Pardon me?" Mr. Yu froze. "Diablo? No. What's Diablo?" Standing beside them, a fat man in luxurious clothes said with a chuckle, "If you want to read a novel, Celestial Warrior is the only choice for you. Forget it." The warrior shook his head, looking unimpressed. "You'll know what we're talking about if you go and hear the story in Fusion Restaurant. If you're late, you can't even find a standing spot. Let's go." You shouldn't have told him that. If more people go there, we won't even have a standing spot for ourselves. Chapter 134 Tricking Instructors to Play in Internet Cafe, a Smart Move. Yu Rui was speechless. The same scenes happened not only in Dongguan Book Forest, but in other big bookstores as well. Soon, people began talking about and asking about this novel in all the restaurants of this area and even in Tianfu Street. People learned that they could hear this novel in the Fusion Restaurant. In the last few days, the place was full whenever Diablo was told. Due to the great popularity of the novel, Li Fusion asked the storyteller to retell the portion of the story from the previous day at noon during dinner time. In the Wind and Moon Pavilion, if the most luxurious restaurant in Zhuhua City didn't have the entertainment option of storytelling, and Cheng and Bulet Che wouldn't have known about novels. It's convenient that we can now buy the newest volume of Celestial Warrior in Zhuhua City. A woman lay lazily on a soft recliner behind a gauze curtain. Wearing an apricot-colored gauze blouse and a milky white silk skirt, she had a charming faint smile on her face while she had turned to the last page of the book in her hand. She closed the book reluctantly and asked, "King He, when will be Mr. Duan tell this volume?" "He's telling it." But, Xiang King He felt embarrassed since he had never encountered such a situation before. But what? Dong King Gli's only hobby was reading books including the history of Dajin and pre-establishment times. Also, she enjoyed novels when she was free, it was one of her favorite entertainment options. Since her grandfather was one of the few top officials who supported the idea of managing the country using civil methods instead of military methods, she had gained these hobbies from her elder generations. But it seems like there are fewer listeners. Xiang King He pointed toward the outside. "What?" She put down the book. "Don't you think that this volume is good?" There were lots of customers in the Wind and Moon Pavilion, but few people cared to listen to the story anymore recently. It seems that they've all gone to Tianfu Street. Ugh! She put down the book. "Where's Wan Yu?" "She's gone to Tianfu Street as well," Xiang Heking said in embarrassment. "What is it?" Dong King Gli gave him a hard look. "What do you want to say?" "Wan Yu is gone for a long while, and I haven't had any messages from her yet," Xiang King He said awkwardly. "Can't you contact her with the communication jade?" Dong King Gli asked in bafflement. "She didn't respond." Dong King Gli arched her eyebrows. "Do you think that something happened to her?" "Shall I take some people with me and check up on her?" Xiang King He asked uneasily. At this moment, he received a message on his communication jade. Listening to a novel in a restaurant. It's superb, but it seems that no one knows where to buy this book. After hearing the message from the communication jade, Dong King Gli murmured and asked in bafflement, "With the 9th volume of Celestial Warrior out, there's a book that is even more popular than it." "It's impossible." It must be noted that these kinds of novels mostly originated from the biographies of previous emperors, which was why these novels were most popular in Jingxi, the capital of Dajin. As in Zhuhua City, storytelling in restaurants was started by her. But now, people claimed that another novel was more enthralling than Celestial Warrior. That is nonsense. Have you found out where we can buy this book? Dong Qingli asked immediately. No. Dong Qingli's face fell. Send more people on it. Instructor Mu. In a cafe inside the Lingyun Academy, Nalan Mingxiu had a cup of high-quality red tea in her hand. The aroma floated from the cup, and one sniff of it could lighten one's mood. Mingxiu, Mu Hongzhi felt a bit weird. If you have any questions about the combat techniques, you can ask me in my office. You don't have to invite me to this place, it's not about the combat techniques. Nalan Mingxiu said with the teacup in her hand. I wonder how much you know about the games at the Origin Internet Cafe, those things. Mu Hongzhi frowned. Aren't they addictive evil things that attempt the disciples to take the risk of being severely punished by the academy? Why did you bring them up? Nalan Mingxiu sighed faintly. Yet, Lan Yan has sneaked out to play the games again. What? Mu Hongzhi stood up immediately. Since I can't go out of the academy, Nalan Mingxiu said gloomily, only you can help me now, aren't you afraid that I'll report her to the academy? After hearing what Nalan Mingxiu said, Mu Hongzhi was surprised that Nalan Mingxiu expected her to bring Lan Yan back without notifying the academy. How could she do such a thing? However, she soon realized that she couldn't refuse this request. Most of the disciples in Class A are not on the Lingyun list anymore. Nalan Mingxiu stated this fact calmly. These disciples' situation is, Mu Hongzhi's face fell, and she finally agreed to help. Just as Nalan Mingxiu said, she didn't want to lose another disciple. After all, she had taught them. When she saw most of them being punished, she felt as bad as them. Meanwhile, she was curious about the charm of the games which enthralled her disciples. Nalan Mingxiu's request gave her a good excuse to satisfy her curiosity. Diablo 2, and her usual room number is, after putting on an aura concealment cloak, one would reveal their true identities only in the games. It's indeed a strange place, addicted. She was amused. I'm just going there to fetch a disciple, there's nothing to be worried about. After a day of teaching, Mu Hongzhi was supposed to prepare tomorrow's lessons and then cultivate in the martial arts tower or a cultivation room. In fact, many ambitious warriors lived this onerous life, and the only additional thing that they did was going out to do missions. However, she took off her fiery red leather armor today and changed into black clothes before putting on a black cloak. She had to personally investigate the place that enthralled her elite disciples. After all, every disciple in her class was a genius, and she hated to lose them. Also, she was an instructor of the academy and thus couldn't let the disciples see she enter the place which was forbidden by the academy. Nalan Mingxiu continued to sip her tea. Instructor Mu is quite naive sometimes. Of course, Zhang Wanyu wouldn't stand in line as everyone else did. She walked to the front of the line and asked, "Is this the place where the Diablo novel is sold?" At this moment, a servant-looking young man paid for the book happily. Yu's Highway looked up at the woman standing in front of her and said politely, "I'm sorry, but they're sold out." Sold out? Zhang Wanyu froze. "We just arrived, and the books are sold out." The servant-looking young man who was about to leave looked at Zhang Wanyu as he noticed her luxurious dressing. Then, he said with a smile, "Hey, lady, I can sell my book to you if you want." Zhang Wanyu was pleased. "Thank you. How much do you want?" "1 crystal." Zhang Wanyu's face fell. "What did you say? 1 crystal?" It was more than enough to buy all the volumes of Celestial Warrior that were out at the moment. "No." The servant-looking young man said with disdain, "Then forget it." Zhang Wanyu snorted, thinking that she would be a fool to pay so much for a book. She walked to Yu's Highway and asked, "Miss, when will you restock the books?" Yu's Highway said, "I'm sorry, but I was just selling them for a friend. There are no reprints." She pointed at the sign beside the door that said, "Only 1,000 copies for sale." "Hey!" Besides Zhang Wanyu, all the other people in the line were stupefied. Only 1,000 copies? No reprints? With such booming sales, is this author stupid? Zhang Wanyu thought. As to pirated versions, it never crossed her mind. After Dong Qingli worked with the official force in Zhuhua City and gave a brutal hit to the people who were selling pirated books, few people dared to do such a risky business. But, how could she find a copy now? Time was essential to business. The Wind and Moon Pavilion was losing its customers. Although they could afford it, Dong Qingli wouldn't like her incompetence. Besides, the loss of profit in the Wind and Moon Pavilion would be much more than a crystal. Finally, she gritted her teeth and said, "Stop. I'll take it for 1 crystal." "Hey!" All the people around them were stupefied. Pay 1 crystal for 1 book? Is she crazy? What's she thinking about? She's obviously rich. Even Yu's Highway, who was sitting in her shop, was stupefied by this. However, Diablo? Zhang Wanyu found this name quite familiar. The game. She suddenly remembered that some customers of their restaurant had once mentioned this name. It was night when Mu Hongzhu came into the internet cafe covered in a black cloak. However, when she entered the shop, she found that the Origin Internet Club didn't look like an evil place as she had imagined. In her mind, this shop should at least look like a casino with some brawny guys guarding the door. But when she entered, there was nothing of that kind. In the neat and clean shop, a cute loli was sitting behind the counter. What's this? She was confused. Is this a disguise to confuse the customers? At this moment, the battle between the Liu Yundaist Palace and Cloud Ocean faction had ended, and it had become quiet, with only a few players left. Before Mu Hongzhu came here, she had talked with Nalan Mingxiu and knew that the students seemed to be playing a very interesting game. If that's the case, it's not a big deal. Mu Hongzhu thought. She didn't know that Nalan Mingxiu had prepared a whole package for her. Room number. Following Nalan Mingxiu's instruction, she activated the game, created her character, and looked for the room number. In fact, the moment that she entered the game, she felt that something wasn't right. Is this an illusion? How come it feels so real? Find a blue portal, go in, and find her? At this stage, she had a stronger feeling that something wasn't right. However, she couldn't figure out what was wrong. Lan Yan is inviting you to join her team. Do you accept? Mu Hongzhu was surprised. This girl is indeed here? She selected yes immediately and saw a few figures running over followed by a large group of monsters. Careful! As a high-level warrior, she rushed over at the sight of danger. In the next moment, a level 1 assassin was sent flying on the screen. Then, all kinds of lights flashed, and the monsters dropped dead on the ground. How come my injuries are healed? Sitting on the ground, Mu Hongzhu was puzzled, not knowing that she had just leveled up. Instructor Mu. Are you playing this game too? Let's go and level up. Mu Hongzhuel. Her face turned dark. Level up? Go back to school with me. After we level up a little. Just like that, Mu Hongzhu, a level 1 assassin was dragged away. 10 minutes later, Mu Hongzhu began to understand the game after leveling up and killing lots of monsters. While I fight with the monsters, I can increase my cultivation strength by leveling up. After killing a zombie, she said in astonishment, I can increase my cultivation strength so fast. After leveling up several times with her team, she felt that her cultivation strength had grown a lot in only 10 minutes. The speed was horrifyingly fast. Of course. Lan Yan said casually, otherwise, we wouldn't have come here every day. I understand now. Mu Hongzhu sank into deep thought. She had heard that one could increase cultivation strength here, but she hadn't taken it seriously, especially after the academy declared that it was evil stuff. But now, she felt that the warrior qi in her body had increased, and it was very pure, not something full of impurities. It meant that there were no side effects in her newly gained cultivation strength. 1 hour later, she found that in this illusion-like game, one not only could increase cultivation strength but could also learn skills and techniques from the characters. Besides, I can get inspired by the character's own understanding and experience. This is so powerful. If one can cultivate in this place, the Lingyun martial arts tower will obviously look lame. At this thought, she began to understand why Qinbing was trying his best to suppress this small shop. His reason was probably not that the disciples got distracted from their cultivation by playing the games. Of course, she hadn't noticed that the games were fun to play. Before she knew it, she had killed quite a few bosses and changed into a set of golden items under the guidance of her teammates. Xiang Qinghe felt like something wasn't right. Anyway, it won't hurt to read it. He wiped the cold sweat from his forehead while he thought. The writing is ordinary. At first, Dong Qingli read with a frown. However, the more she read, the more surprised she got. The novel described a completely different world. She felt neither envy nor admiration, but the strong curiosity hit her when she learned something new and wondrous. When she read the book, she even felt like it broadened her vision and knowledge. It felt like she was getting to know a new world. Of course, she didn't know that this logical and fantastic story never occurred in her world. Driven by this strong curiosity, she couldn't stop reading. She felt as if she were in a world engulfed in mist, and she received an unprecedented sense of achievement whenever she saw a new thing or gained a new understanding of this world. Fang Qi had had the same feelings when he read novels in his old world. Like any fiction lover, he would get extremely excited by the author's imagination and wait breathlessly for the plot to unravel itself. As a fan of novels, Dong Qingli was first hooked by the wondrous beginning of the novel. Without her awareness, she sank into the story until she turned to the last page. I'm still a bit confused. Dong Qingli thought with a hand supporting her chin. Who on earth are the dark wanderers that they mentioned many times? No, I have to read it again. She turned to the beginning of the book. Compared to the games which distracted people from the great plot with all kinds of fun gameplay mechanics, this official novel showcased its fascinating plot. Xiang Qinghe and Zhang Wanyu looked at each other and wondered if they should grab the book from her hand and burn it. She looked possessed. Zhang Wanyu felt like if they didn't do that, something more unthinkable would happen. Soon, her ominous feeling was confirmed since Dong Qingli turned to the beginning again when she finished reading the book for the second time. Some people would read the best parts of a book repeatedly. There were not a lot of such people, but Zhang Wanyu gaped as she finally understood what a bookworm was. She felt like crying, regretting that she hadn't burned the book before she brought it back. Now, it was too late. Xiang Qinghe felt bitter inside as well. After making many plans with Huo Chang, he got uneasy when seeing this, wondering if his master would surrender to their enemy in the next instant. After all, he had just mentioned to her that the unscrupulous shop even had a game for it. Damn it! Meanwhile, young Master Chen was excited when he heard that Blue Flame Pavilion could make guns and had even produced one with success. As a loyal fan of Counter-Strike, he was elated to find that he could lay his hands on one of these miraculous weapons in the real world. When he did more investigation and learned that Blue Flame Pavilion had made a magnum revolver for someone, he was stoked. As to the cost, he didn't lack funds since he could always get money from his father. Dad. When he was having dinner at home, he brought up the topic. Give me some crystals to buy a weapon. Buy a weapon? Chen Feng was astonished. He knew that his son was a good-for-nothing, but he loved his son too much to give the latter a hard lesson since he only had one child. But today, his son asked to buy a weapon. What weapon do you want? Chen Feng waved his hand generously. I'll get you the best. Give me 1,000 crystals, I want to buy a pistol, young Master Chen said mildly. 1. Chen Feng froze. How much did you say? Despite the great wealth of the Chen family, 1,000 crystals were still a big fortune. He had thought that a weapon that cost a few hundred crystals was good enough for his son whose level was quite low. However, his son requested 1,000 crystals. I've made an appointment with Palace Master Shui of Liu Yundaist Palace and Faction Master Ye of Cloud Ocean Faction to buy the weapons together, young Master Chen said calmly. I can't look bad before them, right? In fact, they were the only people who were at the same level as him right now. Besides, young Master Chen had been teammates with Shui Dale while they used the Rush B strategy. Who? Chen Feng's face twitched, and he felt like giving his son a slap to wake him up from his dream. Palace Master Shui of Liu Yundaist Palace. Forget it, I'm playing Counter-Strike with them after dinner. Young Master Chen waved his hand. Play what? Chen Feng felt like he couldn't follow his son's logic. Counter-Strike, young Master Chen said, it's in the shop which all the businesses in the city are boycotting. Chen Feng's face turned dark since he had joined the boycott as well. He said in a cold expression, how dare you go to that place? Why not? Young Master Chen said, Palace Master Shui promised me that he will take me into the Liu Yundaist Palace as a disciple if I take him into my team and play Counter-Strike together. With my talent, I can reach the Yuan River Realm even though I began cultivation quite late. I didn't even care to give him a reply yet. Chen Feng's face twitched hard this time. Is he really Palace Master Shui? Chen Feng asked again, are you sure that you are not being tricked? Although I never met Palace Master Shui before, I know Castellanan, young Master Chen said, this person doesn't have to bow to Castellanan. Do you think I'm a fool who doesn't notice the details? Chen Feng knew that An Hui was partial to this small shop, and he had thought that An Hui had a special relation with it. Now, it seemed like he had been wrong. Still feeling like something was off, he said, son, take me to the shop and play the so-called Counter-Strike after dinner, okay? This was beyond fun, it was insane. Later on, she had found that the people in the team that led her in the game included not only Lan Yan but Song Qingfeng and the others as well. How come you're here too? Looking at Song Qingfeng and his friends, Mu Hongzhu's face turned dark. Aren't you afraid that you will be expelled from the academy? Instructor Mu, they won't know if you don't tell on us. Song Qingfeng said, besides, it's more than playing games. We play with faith. Faith. Mu Hongzhu almost spat out a mouthful of blood. We must redeem the honor of our punished classmates. Lin Xiao said, that's why we must work hard and increase our strengths. Are you kidding me? Mu Hongzhu asked, what's your realm now? Level 3 Master Warrior Realm, Instructor, Song Qingfeng said mildly. Level 1 Master Warrior Realm, Lin Xiao said in the same cool tone. Same for me. I'm at level 2 of the Master Warrior Realm, Lan Yan sounded mild as well. Mu Hongzhu froze. I remember that you were only official warriors when you entered the academy. She had thought that these disciples increased their strengths in the Lingyun martial arts tower, but these huge jumps were... Hush! Don't tell anyone. Instructor Mu. This way. When they came close to the main gate of the academy, Mu Hongzhu asked them curiously, aren't you returning to the school? We are. Song Qingfeng said, we came out by jumping over the wall, and we must return the same way. Mu Hongzhu felt like she, an instructor, had been dragged into the camp of these disciples. The wall is so high, how can you scale it with your current cultivation strengths? She was amazed by their audacity. They even dared to jump over the academy's wall and get out without being discovered. Move. 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 Show Instructor Mu our wall jumping skills with the sword control technique. Mu Hongzhu watched while they each took out a sword and sent them flying in the air, forming steps before them. She froze at the sight. You even learned spiritual spells. We are controlling the swords with Qi. Song Qingfeng said smugly, Instructor Mu, don't tell people about this. When we're in the national examination, we'll beat the sh*t out of those who dare to mess with us. Watching her students jumping over the wall one after another, Mu Hongzhi followed them without thinking, feeling like her previous beliefs all collapsed. These disciples had reached the Master Warrior Realm while in the Huang House, and the other disciples were still at the official Warrior Realm. Besides, they could even move the swords in the air, which meant that they could attack from a distance. Of course, she didn't know that there was a late-stage Master Warrior in her class. She would be even more astonished if she knew. Meanwhile in the Heaven House, Old Guo, have you heard the news? Wang Zishui is back. Yeah, I know, Guo Xiong answered with a muffled voice. As a low-profile player, he had recently taken time to practice the sword control technique and the close-range combat skills. After all, the national examination was drawing near, and he must work harder. Meanwhile in the Xian house, Su Zixin was carefully cleaning the magnum revolver in her hand. Zixin, I heard that Li Haoran did some modifications to this gun. Shen Qingqing asked with envy. Yeah, it's much better than before. I think I can use it to defeat late-stage master warriors. Meanwhile, Fang Qi was playing games in the internet cafe. It's almost done. He clicked open the skill interface and added the last point to a skill. Skills Expert, become proficient with 10 skills in games, 10 tenths, and master the sword control technique. Task Reward, flying on swords, proficient. Task Description, you should thank your powerful system. Do you want to claim the reward? Fang Qi immediately selected yes. Then, rows after rows of data flashed before his eyes as if new knowledge was injected into his brain. Gradually, Fang Qi felt like a lot of new information entered his brain. Besides information, there were all kinds of tricks on controlling swords. Just as he did in the games, he instantly understood them. Meanwhile, he received a new task. Mastery, master the newly learned skill of flying on swords. Task Reward, Laotan Chinese Sauerkraut Instant Noodles. Task Description, Hug the Sky. TL Note, Laotan Chinese Sauerkraut Instant Noodles is one of the most popular instant noodles in China. Also, Hug the Sky is one of their slogans in their commercials. What? Hug the Sky? The reward is instant noodles. Fang Qi looked at the task in doubt. Isn't this messed up? Today, all the elite disciples of Lingyun Academy gathered on the Lingyun Square. They were going to Jingxi to participate in the national examination. In Class A of the Huang House, sad howls sounded in the class since half of them were not qualified to participate. Also, wherever they went in the academy, they were pointed and laughed at. It was all because they had been expelled from the Lingyun list and became wastrels. Xi Qi looked extremely lost since this blow was quite heavy to this talented young man. In fact, some people in his family began to demand for his return to punish him. He had thought that he might be defeated by someone with greater talent one day, but he had never imagined that he would fall in this way. Don't worry, old Xi. Song Qingfeng felt gloomy at this sight. He patted Xi Qi on his shoulder and said, I assure you that I'll win back your honor. Work hard on your cultivation. Lin Xiao gave him a light punch on the chest and added, I hope that you won't be so lousy that you can't even defeat me when we come back. Got it. Xi Qi felt touched. He had never imagined that they would get so much closer due to the games. He tightened his fists and said, win glory for me. No. Win glory for our class. He knew that his future was counting on this. Otherwise, the academy's punishment would be finalized, and it would bring huge blows to most of the disciples here. Of course. Song Qingfeng laughed. If I can't beat the sh*t out of the opponents who are one level above us, I will be too ashamed to call myself a player at Mr. Fang's shop. They gave each other a fist bump and said their farewells. He had thought that this small shop had big figures behind it, and it was boycotted because it had conflicts with Huochang and others. He had done some investigation and didn't spare much thought to it after knowing that it was just an entertainment business. Now, he began to think that this shop wasn't what he had thought. After reading the book 3 times in one sitting, Dong Qingli put it down reluctantly, still savoring its content. "It's really amazing!" Dong Qingli exclaimed, "How could such a place exist? Who is the author? It wouldn't be unusual if the story was only set in a new world. However, the unique customs, traditions, and even the religious beliefs in this story were realistic, making it a more fantastic read. I wish that I could meet this author." Dong Qingli inhaled deeply with an indescribable excitement, and her full chest rose and fell with her fast breathing. "I want to ask this author how this story was thought up." Xiang Qinghe looked awkward. Zhang Wanyu also looked hesitant, wondering if she should tell their master that this novel was related to the shop that they were boycotting, and it was probably one of its schemes. The shop is using this method to handle this situation. Dong Qingli saw their expressions and asked in bafflement, "What's wrong with you guys?" "No. Nothing." Xiang Qinghe coughed slightly. "That's good." Dong Qingli handed the book to Xiang Qinghe and said, "Give this book to Mr. Duan, and our Wind and Moon Pavilion will tell this story as well." "Ugh!" Xiang Qinghe froze, and so did Zhang Wanyu. It would be free promotion for their enemy. "What did you mean by ugh?" Sitting on the soft recliner, Dong Qingli gazed at her 2 subordinates mildly. They were her best employees, and they had managed the Wind and Moon Pavilion well when she was absent. However, recently, she gazed at them coldly and said, "What do you want to say?" "We don't dare to hide the truth from you, master." Xiang Qinghe immediately bowed to her and said, "We heard of Diablo from the customers who are also visitors of the small shop named Origin. It's very likely that this book is a scheme of that shop." "Scheme?" Dong Qingli felt as if she had been struck by a lightning bolt when she heard that the author whom she admired a moment ago was actually her enemy. How could this happen? It is impossible. The person whom she had admired and sung high praise about was in fact the mortal enemy she was trying to beat viciously. Dong Qingli's expression changed many times in one instant. "Master." Seeing the hesitation on Dong Qingli's face, they immediately said, "We suggest that we burn the book and forbid anyone from talking about it. We will kick out anyone who breaks this rule." "Kick them out." Dong Qingli's smirk was faint, but her voice sounded like a heavy mountain on their hearts. "Then, the Wind and Moon Pavilion will close the door," Dong Qingli said in a cold voice. They were at loss for words. How could they come up with this plan? Dong Qingli gritted her teeth. "Qinghe," she asked, "are you sure that this book comes from that shop?" "I'm 80% sure of that." Xiang Qinghe said, "It's the shop that you dislike the most. The tiny shop that encourages its customers to criticize the snacks in our shop, saying that they are not as good as those in that shop. The incident of that drunkard guy." "Hey!" At Dong Qingli's cold stare, he immediately shut up. "Master, you must be careful. It must be a scheme of that small shop. They want to hook you with this book so that we won't boycott it." Dong Qingli had a sudden urge to go into that small shop and experience the so-called virtual reality games. She said in a cold voice, "If that's what they want, then their scheme is successful." "What?" They looked at Dong Qingli dully. "Their scheme was successful. You've always disliked that small shop, right?" Xiang Qinghe's heart lurched as a bad feeling struck him. "I only like this novel. We'll go and see if they have the second volume. If they do, we'll buy one and won't stay long in the shop," Dong Qingli said earnestly. "Qinghe, Wanyu, which one of you wants to go to that shop with me?" Due to the incident of that drunkard, she had a deep dislike for everything from that shop. However, she felt like her determination was shaken. "After all, there's no deep hatred between me and that small shop, right?" Thinking back, she remembered that she had just gotten mad over that incident once. Wan Yu, you go with master. Xiang Qinghe felt unsettled with this sudden change of plans. He felt bad that all his plans and arrangements were disrupted suddenly. It was in a mess. I hope master just wants to go and take a look. He comforted himself even though he didn't believe it too much. Oh! Prepare 2 scarves so that we won't be recognized. Dad, this is the place. Young Master Chen pushed open the door with a flattering smile. Shut up. Chen Feng gave him a dirty look. Hush. He looked very mysterious in black clothes and a large bamboo hat. After all, he had joined Huo Chang's side in boycotting this small shop, and it would reflect badly on him if he were discovered. With squinted eyes, he looked inside and found that it was quiet. It seems like the boycotting is effective. He nodded. After all, Huo Chang had called all the businesses in Zhuhua City to boycott this small shop. And it was a miracle to him that this shop was still open. He was confident in the combined power between the Southern Business Alliance and Lingyun Academy. Even an Huey felt pressured, let alone this small shop. While he thought about that, a dignified middle-aged man in a white robe and a tall hat came from one end of the street with a team of about 100 people. From the other end of the street, a middle-aged celestial-looking daoist in a black daoist robe with embroidered white clouds was also coming this way, followed by about 100 people. Seeing each other, the 2 men stopped walking, and the air sizzled as if a storm was coming. You came again. Another group training. You are doing the same. Daoist yet. Sure enough, people came to destroy the shop. Chen Feng nodded slightly. In the next moment, he heard a command. Take my order, disciples of Liuyun Daoist Palace. Take my order, disciples of Cloud Ocean Faction. Grab a seat now. Chen Feng was surprised. With a dark expression, young Master Chen dragged his father into the shop while yelling, Xiaoyu! Activate the computers. He finished the routine of booting the computer and opening the game at top speed. Lingyun Academy didn't pause its operation just because its elite disciples left, it continued to work evenly like a precise machine. As usual, Mu Hongzhu taught the disciples combat techniques. After class, she sat on the short wall outside of the training field and thought of the things that still confused her. She had thought that the things explicitly forbidden by the academy would never be good stuff. After all, the academy did it with the disciples' futures in mind even though the punishment was a bit too severe. But now, she found that it wasn't the case. Instructor Mu Yu Liang, another combat technique instructor who was on his way to teach the Xian house, looked at Mu Hongzhu curiously when he saw her still in the field. What are you doing here? They were both combat technique instructors and were familiar with each other. Instructor Yu, did it ever cross your mind that the disciples go to that forbidden small shop not because they are addicted to the games and forgot their studies? Mu Hongzhu was still in deep thought. Didn't they say that some of the students were bewitched by the shop? Many of them are elites from big families, do you think something can bewitch them so easily? Mu Hongzhu said with a frown. These instructors weren't stupid, but they didn't spare any thoughts on this topic. However, when Mu Hongzhu brought it up, Yu Liang began to think. I'm sorry. Mu Hongzhu seemed to realize that she had misspoken, and she checked the time, saying, I hope I didn't delay your class. It's fine. It's fine. Yu Liang glanced at the training field and said, the class hasn't begun yet. Watching Mu Hongzhu leaving the training field, Yu Liang wondered, why did she bring that up? It's strange. Why are we working so hard to boycott this small shop? Glancing around the crowded shop, Chen Feng felt tired inside. However, he had no time to mind this business right now. Instead, he tried the gun in his hand repeatedly. Son, is this the weapon that you want to buy? Chen Feng asked. No. These weapons don't have arrays engraved on them. They will be more powerful when arrays are added to them. Array engravings. Startled, Chen Feng studied the gun in his hand again and found that there wasn't a trace of spiritual energy in it. It has no spiritual energy, but it can unleash such great power. As a person who controlled most of the Chen family's fortune, he wasn't stupid. He knew that if arrays were added to these weapons, they would become a new category of spiritual artifacts, and their value would be tremendous. Besides, these weapons would be extremely popular since any ordinary person could use them. Did you say that Blue Flame Pavilion could make these weapons? Chen Feng asked in a shaky voice. They can just copy some simple ones, young Master Chen said. However, after they engraved the arrays on the guns, the power is extraordinary. The artifact masters in the Cloud Ocean faction and Liu Yundaist Palace are also studying these weapons. They are also studying them. Chen Feng detected an important piece of information from his son's words. Then, our Chen family can't fall behind. He took out his communication jade and sent out several messages in one breath. Dad, what are you doing? Come and play first. I'm inviting your Uncle Yang, Uncle Yu, and some artifact masters from our family over to play Counter-Strike. Hurry up. The game begins now. Palace Master Shui and Faction Master Ye are waiting. Okay. Chen Feng joined his son's room in a hurry. Due to the joining of new players, the preparation was a bit longer than usual. When Chen Feng entered the game was still loading. Before him was a group of golden buildings. He was in dusk too. Buy guns. Young Master Chen was now a commander. Follow me. Rush B. The moment that the game began, people began racing. Stun grenade. Stun grenade. FK. Who threw it? It blinded me. I'm blinded too. Throw a smoke grenade. Cover me. 8 smoke grenades flew around in the air, and everything was in a mess. When the effect of the stun grenade disappeared, they couldn't tell people apart. The ground was covered by bodies, and the survivors saw nothing but grey smoke. Who am I? Where am I? Who is shooting me? Ha 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 ha. There is only one left on their team. Young Master Chen fired without aim with a light machine gun. Behind you. We win this round. We win. The long-time viewer Xiao Yul's face twitched. What the FK is this? Covering his eyes, he walked away and thought, I'd better watch someone else. It was too embarrassing to watch. At this moment, Xiao Yul saw 2 young women walking into the shop. The girl on the left wore a pale green dress, and her pretty hair and slim eyebrows showed that she was extremely beautiful even though one could only see the vague shape of her face through the veil. Half a step behind her was a sharp-eyed woman wearing neat black clothes and a black veil. How come people all come here this mysteriously? A while ago, a guy wearing a bamboo hat came. And now, 2 girls walked in wearing veils on their faces. I thought the disciples of Ling Yun Academy don't dare to come anymore. Meanwhile, Fang Qi was sitting at the counter and eating Häagen-Dazs while Zhang Xiaoyu glared at him as if she wanted to eat him alive. Who's the owner of the shop? Zhang Wanyu glanced around and asked. He is. Xiao Yul froze for a second and then pointed at Fang Qi at the counter. Ugh! Fang Qi looked up from his Häagen-Dazs. New customers? The rules are on the small blackboard, and you can read them yourself. Zhang Wanyu's face turned dark. After all, in their Wind and Moon Pavilion, there would be a waiter coming up to greet the customers, but this shop told them to read for themselves. Located in this remote corner, how come this shop is still open when the owner's attitude is this bad? It should have closed down without the need for us to boycott it. Thinking of her previous worry, she felt like laughing. While she was musing with these thoughts, Fang Qi continued, Oh, you've come at a bad time since all the computers are taken. I'm afraid that you have to wait 4 to 5 hours. Do you have the second volume? When do you plan to sell it? Are you the author? How did you come up with such a magical world? There was heat in her eyes. How come I feel like I'm in a book signing event? This young woman was hiding her identity, but Fang Qi could still detect her excitement in her words. I wonder if she will ask for a signature from me. Zhang Wanyu felt cold sweat popping out on her forehead. Master, you're asking too many questions. You mean that one? Fang Qi pointed at the small blackboard. That's one of the games in my shop. As to how the author came up with this story, you have to ask Blizzard. Blizzard? Dong Qingli was puzzled. What is that? Blizzard. Xiao Yul's ears twitched and he sneaked a glance their way, feeling like he would gain some important information. Blizzard. Fang Qi gaze seemed to travel back to the information era of Earth, and he said with deep emotion, it is a faith. There's a saying, the quality of any product from Blizzard is guaranteed, Fang Qi said. Xiao Yul, who had been listening to them on the side, said with sudden understanding, you mean Diablo is the product of a major force named Blizzard? Something like that. Fang Qi glanced at this beautiful book fan and said, if you came to buy the book, I'm sorry to tell you that they are all sold out. As for the second volume, you have to wait for some time before it comes out. Then, Dong Qingli pointed at the small blackboard and finally turned her attention to the game. How about the game? It has 3 parts. Act 2 is about this place called Lutgolian, Fang Qi said. The Lutgolian that is called the Pearl of the Desert in the first book. The content of the second volume. Dong Qingli took a deep breath to calm herself down. It isn't a futile trip then. You do have the content of the second volume here. It's no wonder that there are so many customers in this shop. Dong Qingli glanced around and saw the customers were either wearing the Daoist robe uniforms of the Liuyun Daoist Palace or the uniform of the Cloud Ocean faction, only a few came from the city. This guy can fly on a sword. Glancing around, Zhang Wanyu saw a disciple from Liuyun Daoist Palace playing the Legend of the Sword and Fairy. Ugh! What weapons are in their hands? They can kill from a distance with a flash. Then, she saw another disciple of Liuyun Daoist Palace using a sniper rifle. Are these games? Dong Qingli looked confused. Are they watching a drama? I can watch it here without paying, right? Miss, do you really know nothing? Xiao Yulf couldn't hold it in anymore. You just came here without doing any background research. Dong Qingli felt insulted. After all, she knew nothing but the content in the novel. Council members, come over here. Use resist fire defensive aura. So many hydras. I can't resist them anymore. Static field. Blizzard. Get rid of the big one. On the other side, Nalan Hongguo and others began to kill the council members. Resist fire. Dong Qingli turned her eyes toward the guys who were shouting and battling on the screen. Do you see that? Xiao Yul waved his folding fan and explained, the guys on the screen are the players themselves. They enter the games and move in the world as characters. This is called role-playing. Then, he pointed to the disciple of Liuyun Daoist Palace who was playing Counter-Strike and said, this is a first-person shooter game in which players battle with each other with guns. This shop has a movie in which they say that one can see the real world in the novel. It's awesome, but since I've never seen it, I can't explain it to you. Dumbfounded, lowly Zhang Xiaoyu said, Boss. I think this guy explains games better than you. Fang Qi said, he just repeated what I said. Oh, while you're waiting for seats, Xiao Yulf continued, you can buy a container of Häagen-Dazs. The taste of it. Xiao Yulf looked so fascinated as if he had eaten it before. Sir, this employee of yours is a better salesman than you, Zhang Wanyu said coldly. Employee? Fang Qi glanced at Xiao Yulf. Do you mean this guy who is on our blacklist but just doesn't want to leave? Hey! Zhang Wanyu froze. Xiao Yulf said with confidence, one day, I'll get to play the games. At this moment, he seemed to be struck by an idea. Our Liuyun Daoist Palace has all kinds of spiritual spells, Xiao Yulf sneered silently. I don't believe that I can't find a way to trick you. After staying here for such a long time, I know almost everything about this shop. This damn shop owner seems nice to women. They call it chivalry and manner, but in my opinion, humph. It's said that the shop has games that favor female players. The so-called Resident Evil is one of them. Xiao Yulf said while looking at the beauties by his side. But now, I'll steal your thunder. Xiao Yulf smirked. Häagen-Dazs. Dong Qingli frowned, thinking that the food in her Wind and Moon Pavilion was the best in Zhuhua City. Besides, a true masterpiece would have a poetic name, and Häagen-Dazs sounded quite ordinary. Meanwhile, Xiao Yulf continued to show off his knowledge while waving his folding fan. The Häagen-Dazs isn't ordinary food. Its production techniques originate from the Crisp Mountain, the most popular snack in the summer at Jingxi, but it is more advanced and exquisite. Its milk fragrance mingles with the scent of vanilla. It melts on your tongue and its taste. The ingredients used in Häagen-Dazs are selected with such care that they triumph all others. Then, he began to brag about the ingredients of Häagen-Dazs. This small shop put such emphasis on snacks. Hearing his words, Dong Qingli seemed to change her opinion about this shop, and she even looked impressed. Then, we'll take 2 containers of Häagen-Dazs while we're waiting. Fang Qi snapped his fingers. Xiaoyu, take the money. Zhang Wanyu took out money with a dark expression. Are you sure he isn't a shill for your shop? Let's go to the internet cafe. Hey! You! Internet cafe! That's another name for that small shop. Startled, Yu Liang realized that these disciples were sneaking out to the internet cafe during the night. It was outrageous. These disciples' movements were very swift and neat, as if they had done this many times before, and their cultivation strengths showed that they probably came from at least the Earth House. When he ran over, the disciples had jumped over the high wall of the academy. Yu Liang's cultivation strength wasn't low. Immediately, he leaped over the wall and saw the disciples just ahead of him. Someone is coming after us. Is it an instructor? F***ck. Run. Still want to run? Yu Liang's face turned cold as he ran after them. However, he only took several steps when he heard some chanting. Then, his vision darkened, and he could see nothing. Run. I used the cloak of shadows on him. He won't see us for a while. Brother. You're awesome. You put the skills that you learned from the games into good use. Run now. The spell won't last long. When Yu Liang recovered his sight, the disciples were nowhere to see. What should I do? Launch another dorm check? No. Yu Liang thought, if my memory is right, there's a reward for catching the disciples who are inside the internet cafe. Although those disciples were gone from his sight, he would find them in that shop. I can't believe that I'm now a main character of a novel. After playing for 6 hours, Dong Qingli still felt excited. She loved reading novels but had never imagined that she could do this. She was able to enter the world created by the novel and explore the whole world as the main character. She felt exhilarated. Just imagine how thrilled she was feeling when she was able to enter the world painted by her favorite novel. In the past, Dong Qingli felt disgusted whenever she heard people mentioning games or Origins Internet Club. Now, she began to like this shop. In fact, it was more than liking. I feel like I'm fascinated by this shop. Not able to suppress her excitement, she ran to the counter and asked, Sir, you have passed Andariel, right? How about Act 2? Is it difficult? By the way, that snack named Häagen-Dazs is delicious. Dong Qingli licked her lips as if she were still savoring the ice cream. After all, she was not only a bookworm but also a foodie. Otherwise, she wouldn't have opened that big restaurant. It's much more delicious than the food in the Wind and Moon Pavilion. Is the cooking technique really so sophisticated? Which shop do you really own? Zhang Wanyu's expression turned dark, and she felt like crying when she looked at the starry-eyed Dong Qingli. Who would have thought that the owner of the Wind and Moon Pavilion would come to this internet cafe during the night and praise of the food of another shop while talking about Diablo? It was fortunate that they were wearing veils, and no one had recognized them. Otherwise, Zhang Wanyu would die of embarrassment. Forget it. Our identities are concealed by the veils. It doesn't matter what we do. Zhang Wanyu no longer wanted to care. This is the place. Yu Liang pushed open the door and entered the shop. Then, he saw two women in veils talking with an ordinary-looking young man in a lowly at the counter. Also, an elegant-looking young man in a golden robe put in a word or two occasionally. Where are they? Yu Liang glanced around the shop but couldn't find those disciples. Compared with the big shops in the city, Fang Qi two shops were small, but they still had 2 floors. It wasn't easy for Yu Liang to find his targets in a short time. Xiao Yulv glanced at him and quickly turned his gaze away, thinking, he's a guy. I'll just ignore him. Yu Liang felt confused. He had heard that this was a small shop, but it didn't look small to him. Should I ask the shop owner to find them for me? He quickly shook his head, knowing that the shop owner would kick him out upon knowing that he was here to catch disciples. At this moment, he realized that he knew almost nothing about this shop, and he felt lost upon entering. Yet, he knew nothing about this shop, not even a tiny bit. He tried to remember the technique that one of the disciples used on him, and he knew that it wasn't a combat technique from any of the major forces in the city. Suddenly, he recalled that the disciples mentioned it was a skill from a game. Then, Mu Hongzhu's words appeared in his mind. The 3 disciples from the Earth House disciples were not elites but could escape from him easily, that surprised him. Since those disciples were able to use unique techniques on him, he knew that they were very smart. Are they so easily bewitched? Maybe. I'll see what's inside this shop. Sir. His expression turned dark as he asked, what is the Cloak of Shadows? It's one of the skills of the assassins in Diablo. Fang Qi pointed at the small blackboard. Do you want to play? I want to try it. It's a skill from this shop. Is it a new combat technique? Yu Liang paid without hesitation. Wind and Moon Pavilion, it's so late. How come they are still not back? Xiang King he felt anxious. Did anything happen to them? It had been more than 10 hours, and it shouldn't have taken so long to buy a book. More importantly, they didn't respond to his messages through the communication jade. Damn it! Did someone discover their identities? Meanwhile, outside of the internet cafe, Dong Qingli enjoyed herself very much today. Still savoring the game that she had played, Dong Qingli clicked her tongue and said, there's such a grand world in Diablo. Before the adventurers came, there had been a war against Diablo. Although she couldn't buy the 2nd volume of Diablo, she felt great that she had gained so much information from her talk with Fang Qi. Haagen-Dazs is super tasty. The game is thrilling. It sounded like Dong Qingli would come here tomorrow to continue playing the game and talking about Diablo. Then, shall we continue boycotting this shop? Zhang Wanyu asked awkwardly. Of course. We must do it with greater efforts. If we stop boycotting it, there will be too many customers visiting the shop, and we'll wait forever in line. Dong Qingli gritted her teeth, looking worried. They bring so many people with them and leave us no seats. Zhang Wanyu felt the same after waiting in line for such a long time. Then, we must continue boycotting it. In a few days, contact the Master Huo of the Southern Business Alliance and tell him that we must put more effort in boycotting. Then, we must put some pressure on Liu Yundaist Palace and Cloud Ocean faction and ask them not to bring so many people here each day. But they are major organizations. I'm afraid we can't put pressure on them. These 2 organizations buy a lot of stuff from the Southern Business Alliance, right? Hee. Haha. Bright lights appeared in his eyes, and his shoulders shook with excitement. I can gain levels by killing monsters. I can increase my strength by leveling up. I never imagined that something as cool as this existed in our world. It's so incredible. Leveling up feels so wonderful. After playing only about 5 hours during the night, Yu Liang felt like his strength improved faster than when he was cultivating in the martial arts tower with the aid of all kinds of elixirs. It's so awesome. Feeling the newly acquired warrior qi in his body, Yu Liang found no trace of impurities in it. It usually takes me a lot of time and energy to cultivate warrior qi of this purity. Yet, I obtained it after playing for one night. No wonder those disciples took such great risks to go there. Yu Liang murmured to himself. If I keep doing this, it won't be long before I become an instructor of the Earth House, and I will even be able to teach those super elite disciples at the Heaven House. How did someone come up with such a powerful cultivation method? It increases one's strength much faster than the martial arts tower. This feeling is beyond words. Such thrill. However, I heard that players can form teams. One can kill monsters in a faster and safer way in a team? He knew that it was true from his own experience. If he died in a group of monsters and tried to run back to get the items that the dead monsters dropped, he would die several times in the process, and it would waste a lot of time. Maybe, I can ask some good friends to play with me, so we can cover for each other. Although he didn't want to share such a good thing with others, but I'll just ask a few people, and it should be fine. Meanwhile, Chen Feng was in a meeting with several artifact masters in his family and some decision makers in the Yang family and the Wu family. They were all mid-tier families in Zhuhua City. They had some power but were less powerful than the big families such as the Ouyang family and the Buletin family, let alone the Nalan family. Among the forces in the entire Jiangnan region, they were in the lower middle rank. We were probably tricked by that Ho Chang. Chen Feng sat on the soft armchair covered by an animal's fur, and he placed his hands on his thighs. He forbids us from entering the shop, but I guess he wants to make profits from it secretly. Can these new spiritual artifacts be copied? I don't think special artifact making skills are required, a long-faced middle-aged man in a green robe said with a serious expression. It's not difficult to copy them, but I can't understand some of the details. Without these details, these weapons won't be as powerful and safe as we want. Daoist Wu is right. Sitting beside him was a grey-robed middle-aged cultivator with his hair untied. We can't bring testing equipment into the game, and we must observe them with our artifact-making experience. It will be a time-consuming project, and it's a test of patience. A test of patience? Hey! The middle-aged cultivator who was sitting across from Chen Feng slapped his thighs and asked, "Do you mean the earlier one enters the game, the earlier one will figure out how to make these spiritual artifacts? It seems that we're late." "Brother Yang, calm down," Chen Feng said, "did you notice the customers in that shop? From what I saw, we're not too late. The people who are studying the weapons all come from big forces such as the Liu Yundaist Palace and the Cloud Ocean faction. None of them are on the same level as us." After a pause, he continued, "If we hurry up, this might be an opportunity." "Opportunity?" The artifact master with the surname of Wu said. "Young Master Jiwei got to know the big figures such as Palace Master Shuet, which is a good opportunity for us as well. They are just acquaintances. Anyway, they know each other through the games, and you can't take it seriously." Chen Feng curled his lips and said, "Today, I killed Faction Master Ye several times. If he took it seriously, my Chen family would have been eliminated by him." "You're right." The middle-aged cultivator with the surname of Yang said, "When I killed Palace Master Shui and you with a grenade, you didn't take it to heart, right? Brother Chen. Hey! You dare to mention that?" Chen Feng pointed at him and said, "I killed you with bullets at bomb site B. That's a sneak attack." "Sneak attack?" The middle-aged cultivator with the surname of Yang shouted, "What do you say about the fact that I killed you too with a sniper rifle through the gate? I was careless." While slamming his hand on the chair, Chen Feng yelled, at bomb site A, I killed you twice consecutively. Brother Chen. Brother Yang. We're here to talk about the new spiritual artifacts, right? What are you doing? They froze for a few seconds, realizing that they had strayed from the point. Meanwhile, Dong Qingli finally took out her communication jade. Whoa! King He sent me so many messages. Then, she looked up and saw Xiang King He rushing over with a large group of people, roaring furiously, "Surround that shop for me! Don't let anyone get away!" King He. Dong Qingli's pretty face turned cold. What are you doing? Master. Surprised, Xiang King He hurried over and looked at her anxiously. Are you okay? This small shop detained you until now. We must make them pay. Wait. Dong Qingli asked, what do you mean by detaining? Weren't you? Then why? Xiang King He looked baffled. It's nothing. Nothing. Dong Qingli said mildly, I had fun in that shop and forgot to check the communication jade. Is it that simple? Okay. We're fine. Zhang Wanyu grabbed his hand and whispered, tomorrow, you'll understand after coming and playing with us. Tomorrow, you are still going there. Xiang King He's face twitched. I guess I'll pass. That's good. Dong Qingli said, with one less person, we will have one less seat to find. By the way, our shop will continue telling the stories from Celestial Warrior. It doesn't matter that we will make less money as long as we can keep the good stuff to ourselves. Xiang King He's face twitched again. What a strange way of thinking. Besides, Dong Qingli waved her pretty jade-like finger and said, wake me up at 7 a.m. tomorrow. You always tell us that you need beauty sleep. Xiang King He looked confused. With a cold expression, Dong Qingli gritted her teeth and said, tomorrow I must get up early to grab a seat. After one night of futile discussion, Chen Feng said, you said that your sniping skills are great? Show me today. Great? His marksmanship isn't half as good as his son's. The artifact master with the surname of Wu said. It seems that we can't continue the topic until we settle this in the game today and decide who's stronger. The cultivator with the surname of Yang said with a dark expression, don't talk to me until you can defeat me. Let's do it. After glancing at the sky outside the window, they immediately got up from the chairs. Hurry up. There will be no seats for us if we're late. Yet. How powerful do you think Andriel is? Who knows? They say she is a very powerful demon. In the early morning, Shen King chatted with an instructor with the surname Bai while they walked to their offices. Yu Liang was walking slowly ahead of them while he thought about whom he should introduce the game to. Without noticing, Shen King and the other instructor caught up with him, talking about Diablo in a loud voice. Hearing the names in Diablo in their talk, Yu Liang was startled. What? Andriel. Such a unique name is unmistakable. Instructor Bai. Instructor Shen. Are you talking about Diablo? Yu Liang shivered. They are so bold and talking about Diablo in the public. Instructor Yu. You know Diablo too. Shen Kang's eyes lit up when he found a fan of Diablo here. After all, the academy was far from Tianfu Street, and not many people traveled so far to listen to the story. You all know it. Yu Liang was stupefied. Yet, they were familiar with each other, and Shen King was thrilled when he learned that Yu Liang was also a fan. He said with a laugh, besides me and Instructor Bai, some other instructors are also fans of Diablo. Really? Yu Liang had thought that he was alone, but now with a group of people sharing his interest, he didn't have to worry about getting teammates. Pleasantly surprised, he said, I'm surprised that you all. He glanced around, thinking that it wasn't right to make their interest in the game known to the public. He asked immediately, what class do you think is more powerful? Paladins are great. Paladins have powerful defense and offensive skills. They even can use spiritual spells. Sorcerers are powerful too. They have all kinds of awesome spiritual spells. When they use Inferno, it kills groups of monsters. Don't you think assassins are powerful? Yu Liang said with disapproval, they can inflict great damage. You mean that guy who only sneak attacks? His strikes are fatal, but he looks chilly to me. Instructor Yu, you like that assassin? Soon, they went into a heated discussion on their way to their offices, feeling excited that they shared an interest in a new thing. Without noticing, they talked about Diablo for a while. However, Yu Liang felt that something was not right. For example, the other two would toss out the names of the characters, which made him wonder, how come I don't know these names? Is it because I just began playing the game? No way. How can Blood Raven drop items? Shen King also felt like something was wrong. Didn't you pick them up? Yu Liang looked at them with a strange expression. What does it have to do with us? How can we pick them up? They exchanged a look. Which version do you have? Which version? Yu Liang was baffled. The shop had Act I, 2, and 3, and he wondered if they meant another act. Isn't it in Act I, Rogue Encampment? Right. Shen King nodded and said, are you sure you didn't listen to a pirate version from another shop? What pirate version? Yu Liang laughed at the accusation, I didn't hear it from somewhere, I played it myself. How can I hear a pirate version? Play. The other two looked at each other. Yet. The Origin Internet Club. Yu Liang said without thinking, you. Noticing their eyes turned weird, Yu Liang's heart lurched. He pointed at them and said in an unsteady voice, didn't you play Diablo in the Origin Internet Club? Led by their instructors, Nalan Mingxiu, Song Qingfeng, and the others arrived at Jingxi. This was the most prosperous city in the entirety Dajin. In fact, the group from Zi Academy of the northwestern region of Dajin had arrived before Lingyun Academy's group did, and the representatives from both academies stayed at Shengjing Academy Hotel. As their host, Shengjing Academy held a banquet in the Shengjing Academy Hotel to welcome the guests. Not only important figures like Qin Bing, but the Vice Academy masters who rarely showed their faces in public would attend this grand gala as well. According to the rumors, even the emperor would come and view the national examination. Meanwhile in the Origin Internet Club, where's your boss? Logging off, Dong Qingli looked around the internet cafe curiously as she asked, he was here in the morning. It's now afternoon. Lolijiang Xiaoyu said, the owner said that he went out to play. Went out to play. Dong Qingli froze, wondering what things outside could be more fun than the games. It's more fun to talk about Diablo. Dong Qingli was angry that she missed the opportunity to get more information about the plot of Diablo. Xiaoyu. Finishing the game, Ye Xiao stretched in her seat and asked, how come the shop owner didn't open the live stream? He went out to play. Live stream. Dong Qingli looked at Ye Xiao in bafflement and asked, what's that? It allows us to watch the shop owner play games on the big screens. Xiao Yulv glanced around and joined the conversation after seeing that there was no one to watch. From what I see, watching the shop owner play is the most interesting out of watching everyone here. Although he didn't want to admit that watching others play wasn't as interesting as watching Fang Qi, it was the truth. In fact, Xiao Yulv even came up with his own ranking. The best experience is watching the shop owner play. When he's not here, I watch Senior Nalan and his buddies. If they are not here, only my aunt is worth watching. Everyone else is just newbies, and their gameplay is not worth watching. How come watching others play can be fun? Dong Qingli and Zhang Wanyu looked confused. Brother Xiao, what did you just say? An Cheng had just gotten offline and walked over with a dark expression as if he had heard something not for his ears. Ugh! Xiao Yulv said embarrassedly. I missed one. Brother An plays very well. It's a shame that he just got offline. At this moment, they saw the big screen on the wall turning on. Hey? Is the shop owner back? Ye Xiao was surprised. No. Look. The shop owner is outside of the city. And Cheng pointed at the screen which showed that Fang Qi was close to the moat outside of the city. Sir! What are you doing outside of the city? And Cheng yelled. Then, he realized that Fang Qi couldn't hear him, so he sent a bullet comment with his communication jade. Of course, Fang Qi had a purpose for going out of the city. He had received a task. Outdoor live stream, broadcast while you fly on a sword and show the sights that you see. Task equipment, automatic nano camera. Task reward, ham sausages, can only be bought after purchasing the instant noodles. Task description, engage in more outdoor activities and refuse to be an otaku. TL note, in China, the ham sausages are eaten as snacks, and people put them in instant noodles all the time. Chapter 144. Please take me on the flight. In other words, he had been a shut-in for quite a long time. From this perspective, it was time for him to go out. Besides, he hadn't gone out of Zhuhua City yet. To his surprise, he still could see the bullet comments on the system interface without a computer. On the big screens in the internet cafe, Fang Qi turned to the camera and said, "Today, I won't be broadcasting games, I'll do an outdoor live stream." Bulletin Che and Yu Yangcheng looked at the screen and said, "Why not broadcast games? What's the fun of being outdoors? Yet, I want to watch you play games." But instead, you went outdoors. Xiao Yulv looked at the big screen in disdain and said, "I'm outdoors every day and don't see anything fun. Otherwise, I wouldn't come and visit your internet cafe. What are you watching?" It was the peak time when the first group of players went offline. Shwedailv glanced at the big screen and asked, "What's this kid doing out there? Outdoor live stream?" Many of them looked puzzled, thinking that they could go out anytime and didn't need Fang Qi to give them a live stream of that. As the shop owner, Fang Qi knew that now was a good time for live streaming since most of the players had just finished playing the games and were about to find something else to do or leave. When he turned on the live stream, many people came to watch. Is this place outside of the East Gate? Outside of the city gate, many warriors and several cultivators were coming and going from the city, and Fang Qi stood at a spot on the outer range of the crowd. At this moment, Fang Qi moved closer to the edge of the crowd before taking out his sword. Why did Mr. Fang take out this decorative sword? Is he going to use the innumerable sword scroll here? And Cheng looked at the crowd and speculated. And Huey ran over when he heard their comments and widened his eyes, saying, "If you dare to use the innumerable sword scroll here, I won't let you get away with it." While the viewers talked among themselves in the internet cafe, Fang Qi unsheathed the sword with his warrior Qi, and it hovered in the air before him. Fang Qi lifted his foot and stepped on it, finding that it was quite steady. When the people saw this move, they exclaimed, "No way! Is he going to, sir? You're mastered that already." "Humph! I think he will fall after a few meters." Su Tianji snorted with contempt. "Ugh! What are you guys talking about?" Dong Qingli was confused. Judging by his movements, he is going to use the sword control technique. Xiao Yulv explained, however, with his current cultivation strength, he can fly at most about 50 meters in the real world. He stroked his chin and added, "To show my respect to him, I will say that he can go at least 100 meters. Before he could finish, Fang Qi stepped on the sword and shot up into the clouds like a rocket. Def***ck. Xiao Yulv was stupefied. How did he do that? It's the same as when we're in the game. Su Tianji, who had said that Fang Qi couldn't fly more than a few meters, was also stupefied. Did he steal the sword control technique from Li Xiaoao? Fenghua and Yuexin shrieked behind Su Tianji, "How come he can fly so high? Wow! I so envy him." Ye Xiao shrieked in excitement as well, "I want to fly too." "Sir! Are you cheating?" Dumbfounded, An Cheng gazed at the screen and didn't know how to react. Although he could now fly with the sword control technique, he couldn't fly so fast or so far after learning it only for a short time. It must be noted that it usually took several years for a less talented cultivator to master the technique, let alone warriors. How long has it been since I learned this? The sword control technique was powerful in the game, but it was only a game. Just like when people watched commercials in Fang Qi Old World, they knew that some special effects were added to it. Therefore, people were stunned when they realized that the sword control technique in the real world could be on par with the technique in the game. The shop owner is awesome. All of them looked at the screen with wide eyes while they watched the awe-inspiring sight. Sir! How did you do it? That senior must have given you another private lesson. It's unfair. I swear that those cultivators and warriors who were around the shop owner were stupefied by this sight. The people outside of the East Gate were stunned. I've never seen someone who could fly like this. Bystanders wondered, did I just see something fly away? Sir, give us a glimpse of the people outside of the East Gate. Bullet comments flooded the screen. While covering her mouth with her hand, Dong Qingli and Zhang Wanyu looked at each other in shock. How can he fly like this? With a celestial sword, one can go to the heavens and enter the netherworld, someone yelled in the internet cafe. After the players from Zhuhua City were restricted from coming into the internet cafe, most of the customers came from cultivation sects and factions such as the Cloud Ocean faction and Liu Yundaist Palace. Their favorite technique was the sword control technique. When they saw Fang Qi riding on the sword into the clouds in real life. Our grand sword control technique is glorious. He can fly this way in the real world. It's awesome. Do you see that? The tough winds in the sky are being split apart by the sword energy. He doesn't have to worry about his safety. Sir! Take me with you. A disciple from Liu Yundaist Palace shouted. Count me in. An Cheng immediately sent a bullet comment. Sir! We also want to experience the sword control technique this way. Please take us with you on your flight. Seeing this request, the others shared the sentiment. They couldn't fly so far, but they could ask the shop owner to take them on the flight. I want the shop owner to take me on the flight too. Ye Xiao sent a bullet comment in a hurry. If he takes anyone, he will take me. Zhang Xiaoyu didn't want to be outshined. Fenghua and Yuexin were about to send the same requests when they were stopped by Xiao Yulv, who whispered, Senior sisters, according to my observation, the shop owner is a pervert. You can't offer him any opportunities. Meanwhile, Fang Qi, who was flying in the sky, dug out his communication jade, which showed the newest message. Sir, it's okay that the shop doesn't welcome me, but I hope that you can take me flying outside the shop. Please give me a chance. Xiao Yulv. Fang Qi face twitched while he thought, this guy is on the blacklist, but he still somehow connected to my communication jade. Then, he said to the camera, I'm sorry, today's outdoor live stream doesn't include taking people on flights. If anyone wants to be taken on the flight, please wait until next time. Hearing his words, the people in the internet cafe went into an uproar. Sir! You are enjoying it all alone. And you are making us watch you. Don't you feel any shame? That's outrageous. Today, I'll go on a strike. I won't play any games. An Cheng, who had finished his 6 hours of playtime, yelled while he sent this message. Ugh! Which faction does the sword control technique belong to? How come I've never seen it before? It looks so powerful. Only Dong Qingli, the new player, looked confused. It belongs to the Shushan faction, the others answered. Oh, so Mr. Fang is a disciple of the Shushan faction. So are we. Ye Xiao waved her small fist and shouted with dignity. Behind her, Ye Songtao's face twitched. If she wasn't his daughter, he would have expelled her from the faction. Pretty sister, would you like to buy the Legend of the Sword and Fairy and join the Shushan faction with us? Ye Xiao said sincerely. We can join Shushan faction after buying the game. Dong Qingli and Zhang Wanyu froze. They had never heard such a condition for joining a faction. Chapter 145 One can go anywhere with the sword control technique. Then, we'll buy it, and we can play it together with Diablo. Dong Qingli looked at the screen in envy as well, wondering about this amazing flight technique. But, someone asked with a bullet comment, "Sir, where are you going?" "Where am I going?" Fang Qi didn't know where he was going. He knew nothing about this world except Zhuhua City. When he was out of Zhuhua City, he couldn't even tell the direction, let alone a specific destination. "Sir, you can go to the Cloud Ocean City." "Yes," I responded immediately, "I recommend Cloud Ocean City. You can have seafood there and enjoy the view of the vast ocean." After sending the bullet comment, Ye Xiao smiled with satisfaction since she could invite the shop owner to tour her own city. Go to the Liu Yundaist Palace. Fenghua and Yuexin also sent bullet comment, "Our Liu Yundaist Palace is surrounded by great sceneries. If you're lucky, you can see the grand view of the sea-like clouds. Also, I'm sure that you'll like the flowers in our Tianji Palace." Shuedailv stroked his beard, looking confident in his Liu Yundaist Palace. "I recommend the Cloud Ocean faction. And the sects in the South Sea." Yunlian also sent a message, "The sceneries on the remote islands are as beautiful as those around the Liu Yundaist Palace. You can try the special products of the South Sea, the fog-swallowing tea." Ye Songtao nodded slightly while he looked at the comments on the screen. According to the comments, the Cloud Ocean faction had become a tourist attraction. "You can visit my Yinlong cave abode," the Yinlong elder joined in. Looking at the rows after rows of comments, Dong Qingli was eager to join in. "Shall we recommend one destination as well? You can go to Jingxi. Jingxi is a grand city and the center of Dajin's fortune, and many people from foreign countries are there. Besides, the star-observing tower is one of its kind, and it's said that if you stand at the top of the star-watching palace, you can pluck stars from the sky." After she learned how to send bullet comments, Dong Qingli immediately sent her recommendation. "There are all kinds of delicacies in Jingxi." Mentioning food, Dong Qingli suddenly remembered that she hadn't eaten Häagen-Dazs yet today, so she bought one container. Then, she continued the recommendation while enjoying the Häagen-Dazs, the crystal duck, thousand light silver carp, and golden crisp in Jingxi are the top delicacies in the world. You must try them. "Sir, go to Jingxi." Zhang Xiaoyu agreed with her. "I want to see the live stream of Jingxi." She didn't dare to go to Jingxi since there were too many powerful humans there, but she still wanted to see what the most prosperous city in Dajin looked like. Fang Qi glanced at the bullet comments on the screen in confusion. So many suggestions. Which one should I choose? At this moment, Chen Feng and his son also got offline. "What are you doing here in a group?" "We're watching the shop owner's outdoor live stream. We are recommending places for him to visit." "Live stream?" Chen Feng glanced at the screen, and his jaw dropped in astonishment. "Where's the shop owner? Is he standing on a sword?" He looked at the clouds floating around Fang Qi and asked, "Is he in the sky?" "Sword control technique." Chen Feng and others looked at the screen with amazement on their faces. "Sir, go to Jingxi." At this moment, Li Haoran also sent a bullet comment, saying, "I'll send a message to Mr. Mu. I'm sure he will be happy to see you." "Mr. Mu? Who is he?" Fang Qi looked baffled. "The young man with the mustache? The young man who wanted to buy computers while he was here playing Resident Evil." Seeing Li Haoran's explanation on the communication jade, Fang Qi remembered that guy. "He is from Jingxi? No wonder I haven't seen him for a long while. Okay. Today, I'll broadcast my trip to Jingxi while riding on the sword, and I'll visit an old acquaintance while I'm doing it." "Wow! Boss, you're so good!" Zhang Xiaoyu looked very excited. Who can tell me which direction is Jingxi? Fang Qi was still confused. Fly in the northwest direction. Fang Qi glanced at the direction and moved the sword toward the northwest with the sword control technique. On his way, clouds flew around him. When he looked down, the mountains and rivers on the land looked like the decorations on a big chessboard. Under his feet, the magnificent Zhuhua city was as small as a hand. I wish I could fly like this one day. Ye Xiao was excited by the sight. This kid has gained such a mastery of the sword control technique. Nalan Hongguo and the others clicked their tongues at the sight. He's really fast. Do you see that? It's Vinan City ahead of us. He's at Vinan City so soon? He's so fast. Dong Qingli and Zhang Wanya were still shocked. How come he flies so fast? He is almost as fast as a large spiritual boat at top speed. Su Tianji was a little excited. If I can reach the same level as this kid, I won't ride a spiritual boat anymore. Shue said while eating Haagen-Dazs, this is awesome. And Huey was also eating Haagen-Dazs while he watched the live stream. In the future, I won't buy spiritual boats anymore since a sword can do all the work. It will be so convenient. Xiao Yulv looked envious. The sword control technique is awesome. I want to learn it too, I want to learn it, too. Zhang Xiaoyu felt uneasy. The humans have such powerful spiritual spells. I wonder if I can learn them, sir. There might be demonic birds at the edge of the Jiangnan region. Flying solo? You must watch out for demonic beasts. Well, isn't that a gale vulture which is equivalent to an ancestral warrior? Someone pointed at the screen and asked. Where is it? It's behind the shop owner. I don't see it behind the shop owner, that black dot, are you sure you saw it? Look down. He passed another city. So fast. All the people were shocked. In Lingyun Academy you mean you can not only enter the world as a main character but increase your strength at a super speed as well. Shen King was nonplussed. After talking about Diablo for so long, he found that his friend didn't listen to the Diablo novel as the latter had played the actual game. He learned that Yu Liang played the game in the shop which was prohibited by the academy. What was more astonishing was what Yu Liang said to him. Yu Liang was an experienced person. After he recovered from his initial shock, he calmed down quickly. Of course. Otherwise, the disciples wouldn't have taken such great risks to go there. He had to drag these two into his team to ensure that they wouldn't tell on him. How do we know that what you are saying is true? Shen King was tempted, wishing that he could act as a main character in this fascinating novel. Besides, he could increase his strength in the game. The most important thing was strength. No one could get enough of it. Yu Liang continued to tempt them. Just think of it, the academy never prohibited the instructors from going to the shop, which gives us a great opportunity. Besides, the disciples are not going there anymore and had quit easily. It proves that Director Qin exaggerated the addictive side effects. What good can I get by lying to you? After all, no reward was offered for catching instructors who go into that small shop. The other two looked at each other. Maybe. We'll go and have a look. What do you know? Ye Song Tao said, he still needs to fly over several big cities in the Heiyu region. It won't be so quick. Oh. Ye Xiao pouted. I've never been there before. Look. There's a spiritual boat ahead. At this moment, a middle-sized spiritual boat with a length of 30 meters was flying ahead of Fang Qi. The boat was made of spiritual wood, and the spear-shaped body had patterns of flying snakes engraved on the sides. The boat had wings on the sides but no sails, and it was engulfed in an invisible energy barrier. Clouds were scattered before they could touch it. Master, are we going to be late at this speed? A young man stood at the bow of the boat and looked into the distance. This style of clothes. Someone in the internet cafe recognized them. They are from the Black Cloud Daoist Temple in Heiyu. Hey! The grey-clothed elder standing at the bow is the old man Black Cloud, right? I remember he is, at the True Lake Realm. How can we be late? Sure enough, a short grey-clothed elder stood at the bow. While the three major academies held the national examination in Jingxi, some cultivators were invited to watch the matches. Even the Wu Daoist Alliance had sent cultivators to the event. This Black Cloud Elder was one of the invited cultivators. My spiritual boat is a rare high-quality artifact. Even if I only use 30% of spiritual energy, it's enough to. Master, it seems like something is catching up. The young man standing at the bow pointed behind him and said with shock. Something is catching up? Are your eyes playing tricks on you? Black Cloud Elder glanced at his disciple contemptuously before looking back. Then, he widened his eyes. He saw a young man catching up to them while standing on a sword. What's that? During his long life, Black Cloud Elder had seen cultivators flying on spiritual artifacts and riding on the wind with spiritual energy, but he had never seen such a sight where someone flew on an ordinary sword at such a high speed. Master! Am I seeing a ghost? The grey-clothed young man also looked shocked. Flying on a sword. Ha 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 ha. The Black Cloud Daoist is stupefied. This is the sword control technique. Someone sent a bullet message immediately. I bet that he is absolutely stupefied by the sight. He has never seen this before. Our grand sword control technique is awesome. An Huey gulped down a mouthful of Häagen-Dazs while he sent a bullet message, Old Man Black Cloud. Slow down. Dong Qingli covered her snicker with her hand. Look at that old Daoist's face. He looks like he is looking at a ghost. The two on the boat looked at the young man who flew past the spiritual boat while standing on a sword, looking celestial and ethereal while his clothes fluttered. He even glanced at them casually. Master, didn't you say that your spiritual boat is a rare high-quality artifact? How come someone is faster? Black Cloud Daoist's expression looked like a dark cloud. I used only a tiny part of my strength. I'll put more strength into it. Then, he put his hands together and used another spell, releasing huge spiritual energy into the boat. As if a key button was pressed, the boat increased its speed by 50%. Master, how come I feel the distance from the guy is getting greater? Black Cloud Daoist's expression turned darker, and he yelled, Hey! Don't run! Then, he chanted another spell, pushing the spiritual boat forward with his full force. Spiritual lights flowed around the spiritual boat, and its speed increased by another 50%. Black Cloud Daoist said, Now, I'll see how far you can run. Look behind the shop owner. In the internet cafe, all the people looked toward the big screen. Is Black Cloud Daoist chasing after the shop owner? Tisk! Tisk! Look at the spiritual lights. He has used all his strength. This old man is unwilling to admit defeat. Black Cloud Daoist, I don't believe that I can't catch up with you. Shop owner, catch up with me if you can. Bullet comments flooded the screen, and the cultivators and warriors in the internet cafe laughed and had a good time. Boss, look back. An old man is chasing after you. Zhang Xiaoyu immediately sent a message to Fang Qi. Ugh! An old man is chasing after me. Curious, Fang Qi turned his head and saw that the spiritual boat that he had overtaken was trying to catch up with him. Can he catch up? And Huey didn't look worried at all while he ate Häagen-Dazs. If he can catch up, I won't even practice the sword control technique. In this world, the spiritual boats were flight spiritual artifacts controlled by spiritual energy. The stronger the user's spiritual energy, the faster it could travel. However, the sword control technique was different. Although the saying covering 1,000 kilometers in 1 second was a bit exaggerated, it showed the great speed of the sword control technique. One of the greatest features of the sword control technique was its speed. Besides, the sword control technique in the Legend of the Sword and Fairy had its own unique system. At this moment, Fang Qi sword control technique slowed down suddenly. Ugh! Why did the shop owner slow down? This kid is running out of spiritual energy. Black Cloud Deist sneered. He has reached his limit. Disciple, see how I catch up with him. Pushed by his energy, the spiritual boat flew forward quickly and became parallel to Fang Qi. Senior. Can I ask you for directions? Fang Qi waved at the spiritual boat. Ask for directions. Can you tell me which direction is Jingxi? How long do I need to travel before I get there? Fang Qi yelled. He had flown for a while now, but he saw no trace of Jingxi. It was his first time flying on a sword, and he felt quite uneasy without any sense of direction. Go straight north. You're a few hours away from it. Thank you. Black Cloud Deist smirked and thought, which faction is this young man from? He must have run out of spiritual energy and wants me to take him on my boat. Keep dreaming. I'll never help you. While he was thinking, I go all the way to the north, leaving behind the season where you belong. Fang Qi looked at the sky and hummed while flying past Black Cloud Deist's spiritual boat. Is the shop owner humming a song? What's the song he is humming? I've never heard of it before. Too smug. Sir. You're too confident. Look behind you, sir. I admire the shop owner. Chen Feng clicked his tongue behind the crowd. Master, that guy overtook us again. The grey-clothed young man pointed in front of them and said, you can't catch up with him, right? Black Cloud Deist's old face turned as black as charcoal, and he almost launched a spiritual spell at Fang Qi. You guys stay in the academy all day. You don't know the situation. Yu Liang said, how can this place lack customers? Some of them are big figures among the cultivators. After pushing open the door, Yu Liang entered the shop with more confidence this time. Ms. Xiaoyu. Please activate Diablo for my friends. Oh. Coming. What are they doing there in a group? Yu Liang and his friends glanced at the big screen while they paid for the games. The owner is doing an outdoors live stream. Outdoor live stream. Old Yu. Aren't we here to play Diablo? What are you doing there? Oh, you go ahead with the game. I'll check out this live stream first. Yu Liang saw that the city on the screen seemed to be Jingxi. Is he arriving at Jingxi? Not so fast. It looks near but is actually very far away. The audience in the internet cafe talked animatedly among themselves. The magnificent huge city, the symbolic star observing tower which shot up into the sky, and the people on the street. The sword control technique is awesome. Anyone who doesn't have it yet must hurry up and buy one. Sword control technique. Yu Liang read the bullet comments on the screen in bafflement. At this moment, Mu Hongzhu also came into the internet cafe and saw this amazing sight. Flying above the clouds on a sword looked more thrilling than sitting on a spiritual boat. At this moment, a giant silver-winged eagle appeared on the screen. A tall and muscular warrior who was wearing a black short-sleeved jacket was sitting cross-legged on the giant eagle, resting with his eyes closed. Beside him was a girl wearing tight-fit black clothes. She exclaimed, Uncle, you flies so fast. When can I have such an awesome demonic beast as my partner? Ha 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 ha. The black-clothed warrior laughed. Little girl, you want to fly with your low cultivation strength? If I, your master, don't protect you with my warrior chi, you can't sit here and talk. You would have been blown off by the wind. Ugh! I seem to feel something. He opened his eyes abruptly and saw a figure standing on a sword flying past him. Not only him, but the young girl and the giant silver-winged eagle beneath them also turned their heads toward the sight. The big silver-winged eagle blinked. Are my eyes playing tricks on me? Ha 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 ha. This white-headed eagle must be at the peak stage of ancestral warrior realm, right? This warrior must be at the king warrior realm. Is he? Yu Liang looked at the screen in shock. He's Senior Liang, Liang Haihu, from Shengjing Academy. Liang Haihu froze, wondering how someone could fly on a sword. Master. That is. The young girl watched with widened eyes, and her face filled with disbelief. Kid. Don't run if you dare. Behind them, a spiritual boat with glowing spiritual lights rushed up at top speed. Ha 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 ha. Your horizon was broadened, right? Bullet comments flooded the screen again. You can dump this white-headed eagle now. Ha 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 ha. The owner shocked another warrior. Giant eagle, kid. Stop. Yu Liang and Mu Hongzhu, who had just arrived at the shop, were also stupefied, wondering what the sword control technique really was and how it could fly so fast. Mu Hongzhu remembered that Song Qingfeng and the others had shown off their sword control technique that night. Are they the same technique? Mu Hongzhu froze. Master. How can anyone fly so fast? Dumbfounded, the black-clothed girl watched Fang Qi flew past them while riding on the sword. Liang Haihu patted the big eagle beneath him and said, "Catch up." The silver-winged eagle shook its wings, and it sped up instantly, catching up with Fang Qi. "Hey, kid!" Liang Haihu yelled, "What's the flight technique that you're using?" "Ugh!" Fang Qi slowed down a bit. "Uncle, are you talking to me?" "Uncle." Liang Haihu's face turned dark. "Which faction are you from? You don't know your manners. Who's your master? Maybe I know him or her." Liang Haihu said arrogantly. "Master." Fang Qi thought for a moment. "Li Xiaoao? The liquor sword immortal? I guess they are my masters." Liang Haihu almost spat out a mouthful of blood. "Who are they? I've never heard of them before." In the internet cafe, the bullet comments showed the minds of the viewers. Ha ha ha. You're shocked. The names of the two masters from our Shushan faction are too good for ordinary people like you to know. Sir. Recommend the Legend of the Sword and Fairy to them. Uncle, you need the Legend of the Sword and Fairy. Nalan Hongguo shook his head while he watched, saying with a laugh, "This kid." The black-clothed girl was shocked, and she blinked her beautiful eyes as she asked after a while, "Is this flight technique very difficult to learn? Do you want to lean it? Can I?" The girl panted and breathed heavily. "Nonsense!" Liang Haihu slammed his hand on the back of the eagle while he scolded, "It must be their ultimate technique. How can they teach it to you?" Fang Qi waved his hand. "Go to the Origin Internet Club in Zhuhua City and play the Legend of the Sword and Fairy for 20 crystals. I promise you can master it." Everyone was stupefied. Ha 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 ha. The shop owner did an awesome advertisement. "Turn around right now. Come to Zhuhua City and play the Legend of the Sword and Fairy. Why do you want to go to Jingxi? Come to Zhuhua, friends. Don't bring too many people with you. Or you'll have to wait in line." "Right. You have to wait outside in line if you bring too many people with you." "Osh! My belly." Zhang Wanya rubbed her belly while she laughed hard with Dongqing glee. "It's so fun." He even promised her that she would master it. Su Tianji was also amused. How could he say that? "Oh! I can't laugh like this anymore. Ha 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 ha. Young Masterin. Give me a hand." He still remembers to advertise for his shop while he is out having fun. And Huey said with a chuckle, "This kid is good at this." Ouyang Zhen said, "Liang Haihu just sent me a message, asking me if there's an elder named Liquor Sword Immortal in Zhuhua City who teaches the sword control technique. Ha 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 ha. Can I learn it for 20 crystals?" The black-clothed girl rolled her eyes and asked, "Master, maybe it's fake information." While his face twitched, Liang Haihu clutched the communication jade in his hand and said, "It seems, it's true. When you finish the national examination, I'll take you to Zhuhua City." 20 crystals? Can one learn the sword control technique by playing the Legend of the Sword and Fairy? Not only Yu Liang, but Mu Hongzhou was also astonished. Ms. Xiaoyu, activate the legend of the sword and fairy for me. Yu Liang immediately yelled. Ms. Xiaoyu, activate the legend of the sword and fairy for me as well. Chen Feng and the others also came up. Then, what about counter-strike? Chen Feng waved his hand. We'll play both. Both. At this moment, Fang Qi came down from the sky and landed in front of the south gate of Jingxi. Mr. Fang, it's been a while since we met last time. Mu Donglei, the young man with the mustache, had a high status. Even Li Haoran greeted him with respect. Fang Qi shrugged. I came here for a tour. I didn't know that you were here. I'm a native resident of Jingxi. Mu Donglei shook his head. Unfortunately, I have a lot of business to handle, or I would have gone to Jiangnan again and visited your shop. They are games, but they are miraculous. Mu Donglei's words were full of appreciation. I heard that you've launched some new games in your shop. While they talked and drank liquor, some warriors walked into Origin's internet club, saying, they said that this shop has the other volumes of Diablo. They say that one can be the main character in the game. Hush! Watch out! It's said that the Southern Business Alliance is boycotting this small shop. Several warriors said, we must enter it with care. If we're discovered, we'll offend a lot of people. Hiss! It's expensive. They looked at the prices on the small blackboard and couldn't help gasping. Now that one book even costs 1 crystal, the game itself would definitely be more expensive, another warrior said, this is high-end stuff. I heard that a while ago, young Master An spent quite a few crystals on an item in a game called Diablo. At that time, Diablo wasn't popular in Zhuhua City yet, and many people just took this incident as a joke. However, when they recalled this incident now, let's try it. Maybe it's worth this price, a warrior said. If I can get some of these items, I'll get my money back. Besides, they say that the game is more fascinating than the novel. Let's go and have a try. After these people entered the shop, some warriors wearing masks came in. Blackie, did you spread the word? Of course. The black-clothed warrior said, I alone can't afford to mess with these huge organizations, but with so many people asking about Diablo, I'll guide all of them to this place. I don't believe that the Southern Business Alliance can handle so many of us. Move. 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 Hurry up and go in there. A dark-skinned brawny guy said, it has been a long time since I last came here. Xiaoyu. Get us some hours. Blackie sniffed. The scent is so nostalgic. Hurry up and get online. I've waited for so long. Ugh. Blackie saw a big group of people near the door. Sir. What's wrong? Why did you turn off the live stream? Yet. I still want to watch. What's he doing now that he has arrived in Jingxi? Why doesn't he show us? Right. I was hoping to see Jingxi. I've never been there. Meanwhile in Yingtian Pavilion at Jingxi, national examination. Fang Qi frowned and remembered that Song Qing Feng, Nalan Mingxiu and the others had come to Jingxi to take the national examination. Mr. Feng, don't you know that? Mu Donglei said with a chuckle, this is the newest gala in Jingxi, and almost everyone knows about it. I heard of it. Fang Qi shrugged. But I don't know much about it. Mr. Mu, can you tell me something about it? People say that the 3 major academies are holding the national examination, but it's the emperor who came up with the idea. That is why it's called the national examination. Mu Donglei said, the 3 major academies are Shengjing, Lingyun, and Ziai, which are the most ancient and most powerful academies in the country. The academy masters of these 3 academies enjoy very high status. Take Shengjing Academy as an example. Even members of royalty must cultivate like the ordinary people once they enter the academy. They don't have any privileges in the school. At this moment, Nalan Mingxiu, Song Qingfeng, and the others were in Shengjing Academy. Shengjing Academy had lots of equipment and could do tests on things such as warrior qi, strength, and speed. Today, they would do the civil test, which wasn't a test of cultural knowledge but a test of basic qualities. Led by the instructors, they came to the venue to do the civil test, and the elite disciples' strength, speed, and cultivation strength would be tested here. It's said that there are quite a few powerful figures in this national examination. Yet, the Heaven, Earth, Xian, and Huang houses in Shengjing Academy this year are especially powerful. I heard people talk about it when I entered the Yingtian Pavilion, Fang Qi said with the liquor cup in his hand. They said that the fifth prince has ultimate talent. Although he is in the Earth House at Shengjing Academy due to his young age, his strength has reached the ancestral warrior realm. After the national examination, it's highly likely that he will be accepted into the Heaven House as an exception. After a moment of consideration, Fang Qi continued, in Lingyun Academy, the average cultivation strength of an Earth House disciple is at the Grand Master Warrior Realm, right? Mu Donglei replied with a smile, yes, it's said that Qin Zhang from the Earth House at Lingyun Academy has probably reached the peak stage of Grand Master Warrior Realm, but he is still far from the Ancestral Warrior Realm. Impossible. Shameless. It's cheating. At this moment, Qin Bing slammed his hand on the table. The fifth prince just achieved a breakthrough suddenly. He has even reached the Ancestral Warrior Realm. He became an Ancestral Warrior before entering the Heaven House. Director Qin, please calm down. Some instructors tried to comfort him. Even if he has reached the Ancestral Warrior Realm, his realm isn't stable due to his recent breakthrough. Gongzi Qin might still defeat him with that combat technique. Then, how about their Heaven House? Do you know anything about those disciples? Qin Bing asked. He looked gloomy. He had thought that a peak stage Grand Master Warrior in the Earth Houses was strong enough, equipped with that unique combat technique, Qin Zhang would be able to defeat anyone from the Earth Houses of all three academies. However, now it seemed an ancestral warrior. We detected nothing unusual in the Heaven Houses, but we don't know if they have hidden their true strengths. Right. It's not often that a disciple in Earth Houses breaks through to the Ancestral Warrior Realm. Many of the disciples in the Heaven Houses of the three academies are still at the Grand Master Warrior Realm. After all, it isn't so easy to break through to the Ancestral Warrior Realm. Cultivation gets more difficult in the later stages. It was unheard of that an Earth House disciple would reach the Ancestral Warrior Realm. It seems that I overreacted. Qin Bing exhaled in relief. Tomorrow is the combat test of the national examination, right? Qin Bing closed his eyes in fatigue. Tell all the disciples to cultivate harder. Harder. Keep a low profile. Huang Pujin from Shengjing Academy and Luo Yun from Zi Academy are all at the peak stage of the official warrior realm. Since the three academies had strict requirements on age, most of the disciples of Huang House were still at the body forging realm. At the body forging realm, the warriors were trying to temper their bodies, and it would take a long time. Even if they started practicing when they were very young, they had to spend a long time on it. Before they got their bodies prepared, none of them would try to achieve a breakthrough. Song Qingfeng stared at Nalan Mingxiu and gave her a thumbs up, saying, "Your realm is really high. You will reach the Grand Master Warrior Realm soon, and you showed only the peak stage of official Warrior Realm in the test? Shame on you." Nalan Mingxiu said in a low voice, "I didn't want to scare them. It's enough that I got a high mark." With his face twitching, Song Qingfeng said, "That's a good point. Later, we'll show the middle stage of the official warrior realm in the test. Young Master Song, you can show the strength of a level 6 official warrior, and we'll show level 4 or level 5, Lin Xiao said. "Hey! Little kids from Huang the house. I see you guys again." Lu Shijia, who once had a confrontation with Song Qingfeng and his friends, walked over behind a deep-eyed warrior who was wearing a black warrior suit and carrying a black sword on his back. "You know them. The black-clothed warrior didn't glance this way as he continued, "Come on. Don't be late. Is he Wang Kun from the Xian House of Ling Yun Academy? The number 1 warrior on the Ling Yun list from the Xian House. Who's the guy walking behind him?" These two came here to get the warrior Qi test, and the results came out soon. Wang Kun. Peak stage of Master Warrior Realm. Lu Shijia. Level 7 Master Warrior Realm. At this moment, Su Zixin was still hesitant. "Qing Qing, shall we reveal our strengths?" Ugh, Shen Qing felt her strength, which was at the 6th level of the Grand Master Warrior Realm. Su Zixin was at the 5th level of the Grand Master Warrior Realm, and they were both from the Xian House. While other Xian House disciples who achieved Grand Master Warrior Realm had just gained the breakthrough, these two girls had obviously gained the breakthrough a long time ago. "Don't scare them," Su Zixin glanced at Wang Kun who had just finished testing and said, "We'll show the same strength as his." Okay. Soon, the test results came out. Su Zixin from the Xian House. Peak stage of the Master Warrior Realm. Shen Qing from the Xian House. The peak stage of Master Warrior Realm. Well? Where did they come from? Many disciples of Shengjing Academy and Zi Academy were still around, and they murmured to each other, "Su Zixin. I've never heard of this name before, I've heard of her, but she used to rank in the middle of the Ling Yun list." Shen Qing. Is this girl on the Ling Yun list? How come I feel like I've never seen her before? I know nothing about her. How did she enter the Ling Yun list? Something is wrong. Who on earth are these people from Ling Yun Academy? How come the Ling Yun Academy suddenly have 2 more peak stage master warriors? And they both come from the Xian House. At this moment, another disciple of Ling Yun Academy entered the test. Guo Xiang. Level 5 Ancestral Warrior Realm. Gasps filled the entire area. Ling Yun Academy has such a guy. How come I've never heard of him before? Where did he come from? Guo. I don't think there's a big family named Guo in Jiangnan, right? Is he from an ordinary family? This scary thought flashed across everyone's mind. What's happening in Shengjing Academy today? It's so noisy here. A girl wearing black clothes walked into the crowd. If Fang Qi was present, he would recognize her as the girl who sat on the big silver-winged eagle while he was flying toward Jingxi City. Here's senior sister Xiao. It's said that Senior Liang has taken her as his disciple. She's still in the Xian House, but she is going out for experience trips already. Tisk. Tisk. Extraordinary. She was at the peak stage of the Master Warrior Realm, right? Xiao Lenjia from the Xian House. Level 1 Grand Master Warrior Realm. Hiss. Grand Master Warrior from the Xian House. She can go to the Earth House. The disciples of Shengjing Academy were excited by the announcement. In the Yingtian Pavilion, Mr. Mu shook his head and laughed. The 5th prince isn't the only one who is extraordinary. Xiao Lenjiu, the granddaughter of an old duke, is in the Xian House, but her cultivation strength has reached the Grand Master Warrior Realm. As for the Heaven Houses, in the 3 academies, the Heaven Houses are their triumph cards. The disciples in these houses have the longest training and the greatest strengths. Take Ying Zongxian from Zi Academy as an example. He is less than 30 years old but has reached level 6 of the Ancestral Warrior Realm. I'm afraid that his current realm is now at the late stage of Ancestral Warrior Realm. With the cloud-sweeping scroll of the Ying family and the Ying Dragon 7 strike, the combat technique that he is practicing, he is almost invincible among his peers. So is Shengjing Academy. Mu Donglei shook his finger and continued. I wonder how many hidden cards Ling Yun Academy has. I heard that Director Qin of Ling Yun Academy wants to take first place in the competition, but I'm afraid that it will be a target which is difficult to reach. Mr. Fang, do you plan on watching tomorrow's combat test? Mu Donglei said, I think this national examination will be a good show. Fang Qi nodded. While taking out his communication jade, he found loads of messages in it. Mr. Fang. Why did you stop the live stream? I still want to watch. Cheng boss. I want to see Jingxi. Turn on the live stream now. Zhang Xiaoyu continue the broadcasting. Since I can't play games, I count on watching your live stream each day. Xiao Yul Fang Qi face twitched while he thought, damn it. I'm the owner of the internet cafe, not a streamer. I can't even have peace when I'm traveling. Fang Qi tucked the communication jade into his pocket and said, I'll walk around the city today and watch the national examination tomorrow. Can just anyone go and watch it? Of course not, Mu Donglei said, tomorrow, you can come with me, Mr. Fang. In the internet cafe the boss ignored me. Zhang Xiaoyu stomped her feet with a pout. This kid is ignoring me as well. And Huey was also frustrated. Me too. Su Tianji had sent several messages. Continue messaging him. I don't believe that he can ignore us forever. At this moment, Zhang Xiaoyu received a message in her communication jade, tomorrow, I'll go and watch the national examination, I'll continue the live stream tomorrow. National examination. Zhang Xiaoyu's face was full of disdain. That's not fun. The boss said that he will go and watch the national examination and broadcast tomorrow. Hearing her words, Mu Hongzhu's body shook. He will broadcast the national examination tomorrow. She had wanted to watch this gala. Besides, the suppressed disciples in the class also wanted to watch their classmates win glory for them. Maybe. I'll bring all the disciples here tomorrow? The totally different world and the novel setting in a book might not bring them any visible benefits, but it could broaden their minds and teach them things that they had never seen or imagined before. In fact, some independent warriors and cultivators traveled around the world just to explore the unknown. When they learned that the story described in the novel existed in a small shop in a semi-real way. Does that small shop have Diablo? Hush! It's not some addictive drugs. In my opinion, it's just so good that it enthralls people. No wonder some people are eager to boycott this small shop. I think they do it because they are jealous. Besides Shen King and his friends, there were other Lingyun Academy instructors who were fans of Diablo. Let's go in and have a look. These guys wore bamboo hats, which showed that they didn't want people to recognize them. They were instructors of Lingyun Academy, which was a place that was trying to suppress the Origin Internet Club with the greatest effort. Class A of the Huang House in Lingyun Academy. The first few players of Lingyun Academy came from this class, and this class also received the most severe punishment. All the disciples in the class had been qualified to enter the national examination and gain fame in the examination, but now half of them had to stay behind. For example, Xi Qi strength was close to Song King Feng's. With his level 3 Master Warrior Realm, he had the power to defeat almost anyone from the Huang houses from the 3 academies. You still can't accept the unfair treatment. Mu Hongzhu was teaching the class. You all have strength but can't use it. I understand how you feel. In the last 2 days, I've played Diablo. All the disciples froze. Instructor Mu. She went to the internet cafe? Tomorrow, Mr. Fang will live stream the national examination in Jingxi. Do you want to watch it? Mu Hongzhu asked. Xi Qi, Xi Xiaoyun and the other disciples who were left behind in Lingyun Academy looked astonished, and they were pleasantly surprised. I love you, Instructor Mu. Xi Xiaoyun was the first one to react, and she rushed up to hug Mu Hongzhu. Mr. Fang will live stream the national examination? Are you serious? Xi Qi still couldn't believe it. Has he gone to Jingxi? Mu Hongzhu nodded. Since Instructor Mu trusts us, I hope all of us will keep this a secret. Then, Xi Qi glanced around. Is there anyone who wants to go and watch it? Yes. Count me in. There's nothing that we can lose now. We'll all go. Anyone who's afraid of being discovered can wear a mask. It has been a long time since I last went there. I feel stifled. When the news that the national examination would be broadcasted live spread to other classes in Lingyun Academy, some disciples secretly made plans to go and watch it. Things continued to brew. The venue for the combat test in the national examination was a huge oval-shaped stadium. When Fang Qi came to the audience stands, he looked down and estimated that the area could cover several soccer fields. Fang Qi's seat was in the north section of the stadium. He looked to his right and saw a young woman wearing a black floral royal dress. She looked noble and elegant. On her right was a handsome and muscular young man who was wearing a dragon robe with golden trimmings. He also looked lofty and grand. On both sides of them were guests who were invited to watch the national examination, and they all looked powerful. Fang Qi even saw the black cloud deist, who was sitting in a seat not far from him. Disregarding statuses, the disciples from the academies sat on the sides of the stadium, so it was convenient for them to enter the field. Mu Donglei sat on Fang Qi left. This area was probably reserved for the VIPs who were invited by the 3 academies to watch the examination. Some distance away from the VIP area, there were the central seats where the organizers of the national examination sat. An old man who was wearing a black robe was resting there with his eyes closed. Sitting on his left were several old men. Even though they were too far away for Fang Qi to sense their presences, his instinct told him that they were all very powerful. Sitting in the middle of these old men was a dignified middle-aged man who was wearing a black dragon robe. Everyone knew who he was. Bored, Fang Qi turned on the live stream. In the internet cafe, the shop owner turned on the live stream. Where is it? The national examination has begun. People began to shout when the big screens were turned on. Sir! Look to your right! An Chang exclaimed and sent a bullet comment. Right? You mean the beautiful girl on my right? What's wrong? Since he would look weird if he murmured to himself, Fang Qi replied with a bullet comment as well. Beautiful girl. Buletin Che froze and then sent a comment, Sir, you're sitting there, but you don't know anyone around you. How did you get to sit here? She is the royal princess. The audience members sent bullet comments to inform him. Sir, are you sure that you are not sitting in someone else's seat? Ouyang Cheng was stupefied. The second person sitting to your right is the second prince. Fang Qi, the beautiful girl sitting next to me is the royal princess? The handsome guy to her right is the second prince? Fang Qi couldn't help glancing at them since it was his first time seeing the royal family members. With so many members of royalty around him, this kid probably had to greet them in formal ways. In the back of the crowd, An Huey whispered to Li Haoran, how did you arrange this for him? Members of the Star Observing Tower and Wu Daist Alliance are exempt from the formal greetings, Li Haoran said. Star Observing Tower. Damn! An Huey gave him a thumb up. The person sitting next to him is, there is only one person from the Star Observing Tower that people can see, Castellan An. Mr. Mu. An Huey said with sudden understanding. Meanwhile, the royal princess seemed to have noticed Fang Qi's stare, and she glared at him with a cold expression. With his face twitching, Fang Qi sent a bullet comment, this girl is the royal princess? She looks fierce. Fierce. Sir. Your comment is lethal. I have to say that I've never heard of anyone describing the royal princess with this word. The royal princess excels in military strategy and national governance, and she's a well-rounded genius in terms of fine arts and cultivation. I'm speechless at the shop owner's appraisal. She's elegant, beautiful, and gracious. It seemed like someone used all the good words that they could find. Is there anything wrong with my comment? Fang Qi read the bullet comments on the system interface with the communication jade in his hand. At this moment, aren't you supposed to say, such a beautiful person must be a guy? TL note, this strange phrase originated from Japan, but it took on a form of its own in China. Since there have been so many male cosplayers cosplaying as cute girls, a lot of people are afraid of being fooled and would rather think that the beautiful girls are guys to lower their expectations. Similar to the slang term, trap. Such a beautiful person must be a guy. And Huey had been eating Haagen-Dazs while he read the bullet comments, but he dropped the small wooden spoon after hearing these words. The other people who were watching the live stream looked at each other in confusion. Did the shop owner send that comment? He probably wanted to say something like girls are as strong as guys. The audience members corrected Fang Qi words and praised themselves for being smart. Ugh! You all interpreted this sentence in this way? Fang Qi face twitched. Well, I think you can interpret it this way. Maybe.